In this video, we're breaking down 3 hours of all the lost episodes of SpongeBob. Let's get started. First up, we've got the permanently banned episode Midlife Crustacean, the SpongeBob episode that got permanently banned. Mr. Krabs wakes up one morning to a radio station playing a cruel song about getting old, and what follows becomes the only SpongeBob episode to get permanently banned from television. After spending a night with SpongeBob and Patrick trying to feel young again, Mr. Krabs ends up participating in something that would get this episode pulled from Nickelodeon forever. The episode aired on the 24th of January 2003 during SpongeBob's third season. For 15 years, it played on television without any problems. Kids watched it during reruns throughout the 2000s and 2010 seconds. But in 2018, Nickelodeon quietly removed it from their rotation. 3 years later, in 2021, they made it official. On Paramount Plus, this episode was banned. Today, you cannot watch it on Paramount Plus, the main streaming service for SpongeBob content. You can still buy it on iTunes or YouTube as a digital purchase, but it will never air on television again. The controversy centers on one specific scene near the end of the episode, but to understand why this scene caused so much trouble, we need to look at the full story of what happens in this episode. Mr. Krabs' face is getting old. The episode opens with Mr. Krabs waking up in his anchor-shaped house. His alarm clock radio turns on, and instead of regular music, it plays a song specifically designed to mock old people. The lyrics talk about groaning like a geezer, crackling like an old has-been, and having multiple chins. As the song plays, we see Mr. Krabs struggling with his age. His eyes are crusty and covered in barnacles. When he gets out of bed, all his joints crack loudly. He looks in the bathroom mirror and pulls down his shirt to reveal he actually does have multiple chins. At breakfast, his teenage daughter Pearl treats him like an elderly person who needs constant care. She makes him breakfast out of bran adas, not just bran cereal, but bran shaped to look like bacon, eggs, juice, silverware, and even a citrus slice. Then she pulls out a giant pill and forces it into his mouth. When Mr. Krabs asks Pearl if she thinks he's old, she responds honestly, yes, he's old, but that's okay because dads are supposed to be old. Mr. Krabs then asks if he's still cool. Pearl delivers devastating news, since nobody says cool anymore. The new word is coral, as in, that nose job is so coral. When Mr. Krabs tries to use the word himself, Pearl tells him it sounds uncoral when he says it. She suggests he should probably just go to work. After Mr. Krabs leaves, Pearl immediately calls her friend Jenny on the phone and declares that coral is definitely out now that her dad started using it. A walk to work filled with insults. Mr. Krabs tries to convince himself he's not old as he walks to work, but the universe keeps proving him wrong. A Boy Scout suddenly appears next to him, helping him cross the street like an elderly person. Mr. Krabs gets angry and waves the kid away, but as he does, his entire arm falls off his body. He has to walk back and pick it up, apologizing to the Boy Scout for what he just witnessed. A fish named Harold walks behind Mr. Krabs, complaining about how slowly he's moving. Harold points out that Mr. Krabs has had his turn signal on for the last 5 blocks. The camera reveals Mr. Krabs actually has 2 blinking arrow signals on his rear end, like a car's turn signals. Mr. Krabs covers them in embarrassment. A kid named Tyler asks Mr. Krabs to throw a ball back. Mr. Krabs picks it up and offers to join their game. Tyler immediately says no thanks, Mr. Krabs can keep the ball. Tyler then asks why old people always have to ruin the fun. Mr. Krabs drops the ball, devastated. The final blow comes when an elderly fish in line yells at Mr. Krabs for cutting. Mr. Krabs looks ahead and sees a long line of elderly people leading to the Bikini Bottom Cemetery. Church bells ring. Mr. Krabs panics, screaming that he's not old like them. He runs away in horror. The camera then reveals the line wasn't for the cemetery at all. It was just elderly people waiting for ice cream. The Krusty Krab depression. At the Krusty Krab, Mr. Krabs sits at a table looking completely depressed. A little boy named Monroe complains to his mother that his Krabby Patty tastes funny. The mother looks at the patty and says, no wonder, it's all old and dried out, just like that man right there. She points directly at Mr. Krabs. She tells Monroe to put the old patty where it belongs, in the garbage. As Monroe walks to the trash singing a little song, Mr. Krabs intercepts him and takes the old patty. Mr. Krabs looks at it and says they're 2 of a kind. Both have lost their luster. Then he takes a bite and remarks that now he knows what he tastes like. This moment of sadness gets interrupted when Patrick walks into the Krusty Krab shouting, "Good morning, Krusty Crew!" SpongeBob pops his head out of the kitchen window, and the 2 friends start shouting to each other about their big night out. Patrick says it's going to rock. SpongeBob asks if Patrick is ready to go crazy. Patrick responds that he's already hearing voices. Squidward yells at them to be quiet. Mr. Krabs overhears everything. He stretches his eyes across the restaurant and into the kitchen to spy on their conversation. Patrick talks about how they're young, they have wheels, and the world is their oyster. Mr. Krabs sees an opportunity, joining the young people. Mr. Krabs approaches SpongeBob and Patrick, asking if he can join their big night out. SpongeBob immediately agrees, but Patrick has doubts. Patrick says Mr. Krabs might cramp their style. Both SpongeBob and Patrick then appear in a framed photo making silly faces as they repeat the word style. Patrick decides to test Mr. Krabs with the secret cool guy handshake. Mr. Krabs starts sweating nervously. Patrick keeps his hand out, saying he's waiting for the old man to do the handshake. Mr. Krabs has no idea what the secret handshake is, so he just grabs Patrick's hand and says, "How do you do?" Patrick responds, "Fine, and you?" and then declares Mr. Krabs passed the test. Patrick says Mr. Krabs is in, but he's not happy about it. Mr. Krabs tells them to show up at his house at 8 o'clock. SpongeBob warns him that they're all always fashionably late. The French narrator then announces 8:01 p.m., meaning they were exactly 1 minute late. At Mr. Krabs' house, SpongeBob and Patrick arrive, and everyone starts asking each other if they're ready to party. They go in a circle. Mr. Krabs asks if SpongeBob is ready to party. SpongeBob asks if Patrick is ready to party. Patrick asks if Mr. Krabs is ready to party. This continues until Pearl runs by them, crying in embarrassment, begging them to stop because they're embarrassing her. Mr. Krabs asks what kind of hot rod they'll be cruising in. SpongeBob proudly announces they'll be riding the Underwater Heartbreaker, the most powerful chick magnet in town. The camera reveals a regular bicycle with 2 streamers on the handlebars. Mr. Krabs calls it more like a chick repellent and points out there are only 2 seats. SpongeBob says not to worry, he modified it himself. The scene transitions to show SpongeBob and Patrick riding the bicycle, while Mr. Krabs sits in a small wagon being pulled behind them. As they ride, a teenager in a hot rod pulls up next to them and mocks them, calling them dorks and telling them Doofus Drive is around the corner. SpongeBob cheerfully waves goodbye, calling them pals. Mr. Krabs grumbles that back in his day, they used to beat people up for saying things like that. The world's lamest night out. They arrive at their first destination, a place called The Wash. Mr. Krabs comments that clubs sure have crazy names these days. He admits he's nervous because he hasn't been on the scene for quite a while. SpongeBob tells him to follow their lead and keep it cool. SpongeBob and Patrick walk toward the entrance, jumping up and down in a silly way. Mr. Krabs copies them. When they get inside, Mr. Krabs realizes with horror that the wash is just a laundromat. SpongeBob and Patrick get excited looking at their reflections in the washing machine door, shouting about the colors and movements. When the wash cycle ends, SpongeBob offers to buy another rinse cycle. Mr. Krabs says he loves staring at delicates as much as the next guy, but he thought they'd see more actual nightlife. And innate, something wild and crazy and hot-blooded. SpongeBob says he knows exactly what Mr. Krabs means. This is only stop number 1 on their night of debauchery. Patrick and Mr. Krabs both repeat the word debauchery excitedly. The scene cuts to them picking up trash under the highway. Mr. Krabs mutters that he never thought of picking up trash as hot-blooded, but if it's what the kids are into these days, he'll try it. The episode then shows a series of increasingly ridiculous activities, each one punctuated by SpongeBob asking, "Are you feeling it now, Mr. Krabs?" They sit in a kiddie pool where Patrick admits he made a warm spot. They ride kiddie rides outside a grocery store, though Patrick is actually riding on the back of an annoyed customer named Harold. They get their teeth pulled at the dentist. They repair someone's roof. They play Dungeons and Dragons in costumes, with SpongeBob asking, "Art thou feeling it now, Mr. Krabs?" They visit the library where SpongeBob has to whisper his question. Finally, they end up at Bunny Buns, a children's play area. Mr. Krabs loses his temper. At Bunny Buns, kids run around Mr. Krabs, hanging on his hat. He has clown makeup on his face. The kids all chant, "Can you feel it, Mr. Krabs?" over and over. Mr. Krabs asks if they really want to know if he can feel it. When SpongeBob and Patrick say yes, Mr. Krabs explodes with anger. He screams that he feels like a total barnacle head. He violently swings the kids around and throws them off his hat. He asks if they think this is cool, then punches the head off an animatronic bunny and jumps on top of it. He gets in SpongeBob and Patrick's faces and tells them they wouldn't know a good time if it bit them in the rear end. He says he's going home because they're not cool. They're lame. SpongeBob sadly repeats the word lame. Mr. Krabs continues his rant, calling them nerds, geeks, creeps, and babies. SpongeBob and Patrick protest not babies while simultaneously sucking their thumbs. Mr. Krabs delivers his final insult. He may be old, but even an old bag of shells like him knows they haven't suggested one cool thing all night. He says goodnight and starts to leave. Then Patrick says something that changes everything. He casually mentions that Mr. Krabs is going to miss the panty raid, the scene that got the episode banned. Mr. Krabs stops dead in his tracks. He asks Patrick to repeat what he said. Patrick says again that Mr. Krabs is going to miss the panty raid. Mr. Krabs' mood completely changes. He asks Patrick to clarify, "They're talking about girls, right? Girls? And they're talking about raiding their dressers for their underwear?" When Patrick confirms this, Mr. Krabs immediately says to count him in. He tells them if this works, he'll take back what he said about them being lame. SpongeBob and Patrick celebrate not lame. The 3 of them grab a ladder and sneak to a house. Mr. Krabs says this is more like it as Patrick leans the ladder against the building. Patrick tells the old man to give them some credit. They're panty professionals who score here all the time. They climb through a bedroom window and tiptoe inside, laughing quietly to themselves. Mr. Krabs opens a dresser drawer and sees pairs of underwear. He gets excited, calling them frilly things and grabbing a pair of bloomers. He announces they hit the jackpot. All 3 of them jump up and down celebrating. Mr. Krabs holds up the underwear and shouts that they finally came through for him. He says he feels young again. Then the bedroom light turns on. A woman's voice says, "Eugene?" Mr. Krabs realizes with horror that he recognizes the voice. The woman is his mother, Betsy Krabs. She asks what he's doing with her bloomers. Mr. Krabs stammers and tries to hide the underwear behind his back. He turns to SpongeBob and Patrick and angrily asks why they didn't tell him this was his mother's house. SpongeBob simply responds, "Why didn't you ask?" SpongeBob and Patrick run away. Mr. Krabs turns back to face his angry mother. He nervously giggles and tries to blame SpongeBob and Patrick, saying it was all their idea. His mother is not amused. She tells him to go to his room and grounds him for the rest of the night. Mr. Krabs walks away saying, "Yes, Mommy." The Boy Scout from earlier in the episode appears to help him walk to his room. The episode ends with SpongeBob peeking through the window of Mr. Krabs' childhood bedroom to apologize. Mr. Krabs is lying in his old race car-shaped bed surrounded by childhood toys. He sighs and tells SpongeBob it's all right. He certainly feels younger now. SpongeBob says goodnight and leaves. Betsy Krabs shouts from outside that it's lights out. Mr. Krabs responds, "Yes, Mommy," and the lights turn off. Why Nickelodeon banned this episode? The panty raid scene is why this episode no longer airs on television. In 2018, Nickelodeon conducted a standards review of their older content. They determined that certain story elements in Midlife Crustacean were not appropriate for young children. While Nickelodeon never officially stated which specific scene caused the ban, the panty raid is widely understood to be the problem. A panty raid is a real college prank that was popular in America from the 1,940 seconds through the 1,960 seconds. Male college students would break into female dormitories and steal underwear. The activity was illegal, that not trespassing, theft, and invasion of privacy. By the 2000s, this type of prank was recognized as inappropriate and potentially traumatic for the victims. The episode treats the panty raid as a harmless, funny activity that makes Mr. Krabs feel young and cool again. SpongeBob and Patrick present it as something they do regularly. The joke is supposed to be that they end up raiding Mr. Krabs' mother's underwear drawer instead of a random woman's house. But the underlying message troubled Nickelodeon's standards department, USE2. The episode portrayed breaking into a woman's home to steal her underwear as an exciting, positive experience. For 15 years, this wasn't seen as a major problem. The episode aired regularly on Nickelodeon and was included in multiple DVD collections. Children who grew up watching SpongeBob in the early 2000s likely saw this episode multiple times during their childhood. But as cultural standards evolved and networks became more careful about content in children's programming, Nickelodeon decided the episode needed to be removed. In 2021, Nickelodeon made an official statement confirming the episode had been out of rotation since 2018. They explained it was removed following a standards review that determined some story elements were not kid-appropriate. Around the same time, another SpongeBob episode called Quarantined Crab was also pulled from rotation, though that episode was later brought back to television in 2022. Midlife Crustacean remains the only SpongeBob episode to be permanently banned. The episode's legacy and current status. Today, Midlife Crustacean exists in a strange space. It's not completely erased. You can still purchase it digitally on platforms like iTunes and YouTube. Some international broadcasts outside the United States still air it. DVD collections that were released before the ban still contain the episode. But it cannot be found on Paramount Plus, which is Nickelodeon's primary streaming platform and the main way modern audiences watch SpongeBob. The episode briefly reappeared on Paramount Plus in July 2023 due to what the company described as a technical error. It was quickly removed again once Nickelodeon realized their banned episode had accidentally become available to stream. This incident proved that the ban was still in effect and that Nickelodeon had no plans to bring the episode back. Some fans have criticized the decision to ban the episode. They argue that the panty raid scene is played as embarrassing and wrong. Mr. Krabs gets caught and punished by his mother. They point out that other SpongeBob episodes contain adult humor and questionable content but remain on the air. Others support the ban, noting that even if the episode shows consequences, it still presents breaking into a woman's home to steal underwear as something exciting that young people regularly do. The episode holds significance in SpongeBob history for reasons beyond the controversy. It aired during Season 3, which many fans consider the show's golden age. The episode contains several memorable jokes and visual gags that have nothing to do with the panty raid scene. The song about being old, Mr. Krabs' arm falling off, the repeated "Are you feeling it now?" questions, and Pearl immediately declaring coral out of fashion after her dad uses it. These moments showcase SpongeBob's classic humor style. Midlife Crustacean represents a moment in television history where content that seemed acceptable for years eventually crossed a line as cultural standards changed. It joins other children's programming that has been reevaluated and removed from circulation. The episode remains officially part of SpongeBob's canon. It's listed in episode guides and Wikipedia entries. But for practical purposes, it has been erased from the show's current lineup. For fans who want to watch it, digital purchase remains the only legal option. The episode exists on YouTube, iTunes, and other platforms where individual episodes can be bought. It's included in older DVD box sets that are still sold secondhand, but anyone subscribing to Paramount Plus expecting to watch every SpongeBob episode will find this one conspicuously absent. After 20 years of SpongeBob history, Midlife Crustacean stands alone as the only episode deemed too inappropriate for modern audiences. The band serves as a reminder that children's entertainment is constantly being reevaluated through the lens of contemporary values. What seemed like harmless comedy in 2003 eventually became problematic enough to warrant permanent removal from television. Whether the ban was necessary or excessive remains a matter of debate among fans. But Nickelodeon's decision is final. This episode about Mr. Krabs trying to feel young again will never air on their network again. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have the temporarily banned episode, Quarantined Crab. The SpongeBob episode banned. During the COVID-19 pandemic, a health inspector bursts into the Krusty Krab and announces that someone has the highly contagious clam flu. Everyone gets locked inside under quarantine. Chaos breaks out as the characters start accusing each other of being sick and throwing each other into the freezer. This episode was supposed to air in 2020, but Nickelodeon pulled it at the last minute because the real-world COVID-19 pandemic made the virus storyline too sensitive. For 2 years, American audiences couldn't watch it. The episode finally aired on the 29th of April 2022, making it the only SpongeBob episode to be temporarily banned and then brought back. Quarantined Crab is episode 263B from SpongeBob's 12th season. The episode was completed and ready to broadcast in 2020. Nickelodeon had already promoted it in their schedule. But in March 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic shut down the world. People were forced to quarantine in their homes. Millions got sick and many died. During this crisis, Nickelodeon looked at their upcoming programming and realized they had an episode about a restaurant being locked down due to a contagious virus. They made the decision to pull it from American broadcasts entirely. The episode wasn't destroyed or forgotten. Other countries outside America aired it, starting with France on the 6th of May 2020. But American viewers had to wait 2 full years before Nickelodeon felt comfortable airing an episode about quarantine and disease paranoia. When it finally premiered in the United States on the 29th of April 2022, it attracted 400,000 viewers who were curious to see the episode that had been banned during the pandemic. The setup: a normal day at the Krusty Krab. The episode begins with a regular lunch rush at the Krusty Krab. Mr. Krabs talks to Pearl and Mrs. Puff, saying he loves it when his 2 best girls become his 2 best paying customers. He tells them to sit tight because lunch is almost ready. SpongeBob comes out of the kitchen with Krabby Patties literally in his eyes. He shouts, "Order up!" Patrick stands at the menu trying to decide what to order. He asks for a southwestern patty, heavy on the south. Then he grabs Squidward's arm and changes his mind. SpongeBob walks around feeling people's faces while his eyes are covered by patties. He touches Mrs. Puff's face and recognizes her by touch. He says hi to her enthusiastically. Mrs. Puff reminds him that outside of class, they agreed not to know each other. SpongeBob pops the components of a Krabby Patty out of his eyes for Mrs. Puff and Pearl. His actual eyeballs come out too. He makes a pun, saying, "I hope you enjoy your meal." A rim shot sound effect plays. Everything seems normal and silly, just like any regular SpongeBob episode. The health inspector arrives. The tone changes completely when a health inspector kicks the door open. Mr. Krabs gasps in shock. He mutters that the health inspector already bribed him this year, confused why he's back. The health inspector pulls out a detector device and scans the restaurant. He announces that just as he feared, someone in the restaurant is infected with the highly contagious clam flu. The health inspector declares that everyone is now under quarantine. He walks outside and locks up the Krusty Krab, sealing it with chains. He puts up signs declaring it a quarantine area. Everyone inside the restaurant except SpongeBob starts panicking and running around screaming. Patrick asks what a quarter bean is, mishearing the word quarantine. SpongeBob explains that a quarantine is like a mandatory sleepover, and they're all invited. SpongeBob and Patrick start chanting, "Sleepover, sleepover," excited about being locked in together. Squidward blows a horn to silence everyone. He explains the grim reality. A quarantine means you're locked in with a sick person until everyone gets sick and miserable. This is the moment the episode's dark premise becomes clear. Someone in the restaurant has a contagious disease, and nobody knows who. Plankton tries to escape. Plankton pops out of a soda cup through the straw. He announces he's aborting Operation Soda Jerk because communicable diseases are his cue to leave. He crawls through a vent laughing, saying, "Quarantine schmorantine, I'm the great." But before he can finish, a laser shoots him and burns him to a crisp. A robot in a hazmat suit appears with a quarantine enforcement officer. The officer says, "Breach contained. Good work," and high-fives the robot. This scene establishes that escape is impossible. Armed enforcement outside will literally burn anyone who tries to leave. Squidward gulps nervously and suggests maybe they should stay inside. The episode has now trapped all the main characters in a restaurant with a contagious disease and no way out. Mr. Krabs' Navy solution. Pearl starts crying about how she has to cheer at the big game tomorrow. She stomps her foot and says everyone will laugh at her if she gets sick and dies first. Mr. Krabs tells his massive little angel not to worry. They'll do what he did in his old Navy days. SpongeBob repeats, "Ooh, old Navy days," with interest. Mr. Krabs explains that first they found the sicko, and then they locked him in the freezer hole. With the infected sailor isolated, the rest of them could enjoy themselves, certain of their continued good health. He sighs and calls them good times. Mrs. Puff nervously asks if they let the sailors out of the freezer once they got better. Mr. Krabs responds with, "Huh? I suppose someone let them out, eventually." This disturbing answer reveals Mr. Krabs' solution is essentially imprisonment without any real plan for treatment or release. Mr. Krabs asks who's feeling queasy and tells them to raise their hand. Nobody says anything. He comments that's how they want to play it, then pulls out medical forceps. He announces he'll examine everyone for signs of the pestilence itself. The paranoia begins. Squidward declares he's not letting any of these infected imbeciles near him. As he backs away, he trips over a table. This launches a pepper shaker through the air. It hits SpongeBob directly in the nose, making him sneeze. Everyone immediately panics, thinking SpongeBob has the clam flu. Squidward points at SpongeBob and shouts that he's the sick one. He belongs in the freezer. The mob mentality takes over as everyone yells, "Get him!" and charges. Mr. Krabs leads the attack. SpongeBob holds up his hands and says he'll go willingly. He feels fine but doesn't want to risk infecting his friends, especially Squidward. SpongeBob kisses Squidward on the cheek as a gesture of friendship. Squidward screams in horror and immediately sprays his cheek with disinfectant. SpongeBob sadly opens the freezer door and begins to say that all he asks is that they remember him as he was, full of life. Before he can finish, Mr. Krabs shoves him inside and slams the door shut. Mr. Krabs sighs in relief. Mrs. Puff comments that it sounds like SpongeBob is really suffering in there. She turns away saying she can't bear to look, but she's smiling. She asks if someone can describe it to her. This dark joke shows how quickly the characters have turned cruel under pressure. Mr. Krabs tells everyone to let the poor boy enjoy his agony in peace. Inside the freezer, SpongeBob is having a wonderful time. He's skiing down slopes made of frozen food. He laughs and shouts, "Woo!" He discovers ice cream and gets excited. Rather than suffering, he's turned his imprisonment into a vacation. This contrast between the characters' paranoid cruelty and SpongeBob's innocent fun provides the episode's main comedy. Everyone gets thrown in the freezer. Back in the dining area, everyone except Patrick sits behind one table. Mr. Krabs says the problem is solved, and now they just wait for the all clear. Patrick walks up to check on SpongeBob through the freezer door. He sees SpongeBob licking ice cream and gets an idea. Patrick walks back to the group with an open pack of relish hidden behind his back. He slurs his words, saying, "Boy, I sure am feeling under the leather." Squidward corrects him. It's weather, not leather. Then Squidward notices Patrick's condition and gasps along with Mrs. Puff. Patrick has covered his entire body in relish. The green condiment looks exactly like disease spots. Everyone mistakes it for clam flu symptoms. Mr. Krabs shouts that the clam flu is spreading. He uses forceps to grab Patrick and tosses him into the freezer. Inside the freezer, SpongeBob and Patrick have a snowball fight using ice cream instead of snow. Patrick throws chocolate ice cream into SpongeBob's eyes. The eyes launch back out and fly into Patrick's mouth. They're having the time of their lives. Mr. Krabs sighs and says they'll have to be more vigilant now because anyone could be a carrier. Squidward scratches his arm tentacle. Just a normal itch. Pearl immediately screams, "Itchy skin! He's got clam flu!" Squidward protests that he was just scratching. Mr. Krabs doesn't listen. He uses a boot to kick Squidward into the freezer, while Pearl shuts the door. A bubble transition shows time passing. Mr. Krabs now has a 5 o'clock shadow, indicating hours have gone by. He and Mrs. Puff sit at the table, darting suspicious looks at each other. Mrs. Puff yawns. Mr. Krabs immediately shouts, "Freezer!" and throws her inside. Hyenas are heard laughing at the absurdity. Mr. Krabs tells Pearl that at least they know they're safe now. Pearl suddenly remembers she didn't spend all his money at the mall. She hands him some change. Mr. Krabs looks at the money in horror and says the disease must have addled her tiny teenage mind. His daughter would never give money back. Pearl tries to take it back, saying there are still shoes she wants to buy. But Mr. Krabs tosses her into the freezer anyway. He puts on a mask and sprays the money with disinfectant. The realization. Inside the freezer, everyone has built an igloo. The song Jingle Bells plays as they sit around trying to stay warm. Squidward asks to get this straight. Nobody in the freezer is actually sick? SpongeBob says he never felt better. Pearl says she's healthy. Mrs. Puff agrees she's not sick. Patrick just says ice cream and continues eating. Mrs. Puff realizes that if nobody in the freezer is sick, then the sick person must be Mr. Krabs. Pearl gasps and starts crying. Her tears immediately turn into ice cubes because of how cold the freezer is. The ice cubes hit Mrs. Puff, who grunts from the impact. Squidward suggests they bust out, grab Mr. Krabs, and lock him away. Mrs. Puff enthusiastically agrees. Pearl calls out, "Daddy?" Patrick asks, "Who's this now?" and continues eating ice cream. SpongeBob hesitates. He doesn't think they should question Mr. Krabs' orders. He'll just wait for Mr. Krabs to let him out. Squidward realizes he needs to appeal to SpongeBob's biggest weakness. He smiles and says calmly, "You can't cook Krabby Patties if you're locked in the freezer." SpongeBob's expression changes to shock. He's been convinced. He puts on sunglasses and declares, "All right, let's put this crab on ice." The chase. Everyone busts out of the freezer. Mr. Krabs sees them and screams that they're supposed to be in the freezer. Patrick yells that Mr. Krabs is the sicko. He jumps toward Mr. Krabs, but Mr. Krabs flattens himself completely to dodge. Patrick crashes into a table instead. Mr. Krabs crawls away, screaming for them to stay away. He crawls under the grill. SpongeBob flattens himself and crawls under in pursuit. Both of them get covered in grime and grease from under the grill. SpongeBob says that for the good of everyone, Mr. Krabs has to go into the freezer. Mr. Krabs calls SpongeBob an infected ingrate and tells him to keep his filthy hands away. Mr. Krabs notices an opening leading to the grease trap. He shouts, "Oh look, freedom!" and drains himself down into the grease trap like liquid. SpongeBob crawls out from under the grill, now covered in black grime. He announces that Mr. Krabs is in the grease trap. Squidward says someone needs to fish him out before he gets to the sewer and infects the whole town. Patrick says he can help. He pries the grill out of the way and starts shoving Squidward down into the grease trap opening. SpongeBob tries to stop him. Patrick looks confused. SpongeBob points out there's a full-sized hatch over on the side. Patrick says, "Well, what do you know?" but finishes shoving Squidward into the grease trap anyway. Squidward falls into the thick grease and asks if Eugene is in there. Mr. Krabs surfaces behind him, scaring him and making him scream. Squidward coughs up grease that splashes onto Mr. Krabs. Mr. Krabs yells about sicko germs and escapes through the full-sized hatch. He catches SpongeBob by surprise as he runs past, laughing that they can't catch him because he's too healthy. He escapes through the service window. Pearl shouts for her daddy to stop and follows him through the service window. Because of her massive size, she accidentally pries the entire window frame off the wall. It ends up stuck around her neck like a necklace. The others run to the dining area to see this ridiculous sight. The battle continues. Mr. Krabs is stuck in Pearl's blowhole. She sniffs him up and sneezes him out. He flies through the air and lands near a corner, now missing his shirt. Patrick confronts him, saying there's nowhere left to run. Mr. Krabs says he's not licked yet and snaps his claws. A boxing bell rings. Patrick sticks out his tongue to try grabbing Mr. Krabs. Mr. Krabs dodges, grabs the tongue, and starts swinging Patrick around by it. Patrick calls out for SpongeBob as he spins. Mr. Krabs swings him into the broom closet. Patrick crashes into cleaning supplies and gets covered in dust. He yanks on his own tongue, pulling Mr. Krabs into the closet too. Mr. Krabs also gets covered in dust. Patrick regains control of his tongue and swings Mr. Krabs around. He accidentally catches Squidward in the process, making him crash into SpongeBob. Mr. Krabs eventually lets go and flies toward Pearl. She now has a stuffy blowhole from her cold. She dodges, and Mr. Krabs lands in a trash can held by Mrs. Puff. Mrs. Puff shouts that she got him, but suddenly she inflates from stress, sending the trash can flying with Mr. Krabs inside. He lands on a window. The trash can fall back down onto Mrs. Puff's head. The battle continues into the night, with everyone chasing Mr. Krabs around the restaurant. The health inspector returns. Nighttime arrives. The health inspector returns to the Krusty Krab. He unlocks the chains with a key and enters. He calls out asking if anyone is there. He says he has a funny story. He holds up his detector and admits he was holding his equipment upside down yesterday. Nobody was actually sick. He laughs at what a goof he was. Then he hears moaning. He turns on his flashlight and investigates. He finds Squidward, whose feet are noticeably swollen. The health inspector gasps and diagnoses him with grease gout. He shines his light on SpongeBob, who looks moldy as he scratches himself. The inspector diagnoses moldy measles. He notices a pile of trash shifting. Mrs. Puff emerges, coughing up a tin can. He diagnoses trash trichinosis. Patrick lies on the ground with his tongue stretched out. He coughs up 3 literal dust bunnies that scurry away. The inspector diagnoses dust bunny bronchitis. Pearl sneezes out Mr. Krabs' shirt covered in boogers. The inspector diagnoses polyester plague. Something drips on his arm. He looks up and gasps. Mr. Krabs hangs from the ceiling, showing symptoms of every single disease. He even coughs up a dust bunny. The inspector shouts, "The whole shebang!" Everyone crawls toward the health inspector like zombies. He quickly escapes, screaming that they're all sick. He orders an ultra-mega quarantine. Hazmat units appear and are told to get this disease-ridden cesspit out of there. Multiple hazmat workers board up the entire Krusty Krab inside a huge wooden crate. One hazmat worker says to drop it somewhere safe. A helicopter appears and deploys a hook. Another hazmat worker says somewhere no one ever goes. The helicopter lifts the entire Krusty Krab building and drops it on top of the chum bucket. Plankton's voice is heard off-screen asking, "What the?" The sick characters attack him off-screen. Plankton screams that he doesn't want to get sick too and begs them to stay away. Then he sneezes from his own clam flu. He mutters, "Ah, barnacles," as the episode ends. Why this episode was banned. Quarantined Crab was pulled from American broadcasts in March 2020 because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The timing couldn't have been worse. The episode was scheduled to air right when the real world was experiencing the deadliest pandemic in a century. Millions of people were being forced into quarantine, isolated from their families and friends. Hospitals were overwhelmed. People were dying every day. Nickelodeon released a statement explaining that the episode was not airing due to sensitivities surrounding the global, real-world pandemic. The network felt it would be insensitive to air a comedy about a virus outbreak and forced quarantine while viewers were experiencing that exact trauma in real life. The episode's paranoia, fear, and isolation hit too close to home. The episode makes disease and quarantine into a joke. Characters throw each other into freezers based on the slightest suspicion. They turn on each other instantly. The whole situation is played for laughs, with SpongeBob and Patrick having fun while everyone else panics. During a real pandemic where people were genuinely terrified, this comedy felt inappropriate. David Bittler, Nickelodeon's executive vice president of communications, confirmed to NBC News in March 2021 that the episode was pulled specifically because of COVID-19. He explained that the virus-themed storyline was too sensitive given what the world was experiencing. The network made a judgment call that airing it would upset viewers who were dealing with real quarantines, real sickness, and real loss. The episode airs in other countries. While America banned the episode, other countries went ahead and aired it. France broadcast Quarantined Crab on the 6th of May 2020, less than 2 months after the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a global pandemic. Other international markets followed. These countries apparently felt differently about whether the episode was appropriate, or they simply had different broadcasting standards. American SpongeBob fans who wanted to see the banned episode had to search for international uploads or wait for it to eventually come to America. The episode became famous specifically because it was banned. Fans became curious about what made it so controversial. Some fans managed to watch international versions and reported back to American audiences about what they were missing. The episode finally comes to America. On the 29th of April 2022, more than 2 years after it was originally supposed to air, Quarantined Crab finally premiered on American television. By this point, COVID-19 was still present, but the situation had changed dramatically. Vaccines were widely available, most restrictions had been lifted. Society had adapted to living with the virus. Death rates had decreased significantly. Nickelodeon apparently decided enough time had passed and the episode was no longer too sensitive to broadcast. The episode aired as part of Season 12, paired with another episode called Who Are Zoo? Only 400,000 viewers watched the premiere, a relatively small number for SpongeBob. By 2022, many fans had already seen it through international sources, or they simply weren't interested enough to tune in for a 2-year-old banned episode. The episode is now available on Paramount Plus alongside every other SpongeBob episode. It streams without any warning or disclaimer. New viewers watching through Season 12 will have no idea this episode was ever controversial. Unlike Midlife Crustacean, which remains permanently banned, Quarantined Crab successfully returned to normal circulation. The episode's place in SpongeBob history. Quarantined Crab represents a unique moment in SpongeBob history. It's the only episode to be temporarily banned and then reinstated. It's one of only 2 episodes ever pulled from American broadcasts for content reasons, the other being Midlife Crustacean. The episode became a cultural artifact of the COVID-19 pandemic, a reminder of how a global crisis can affect even children's cartoons. The episode itself contains no reference to COVID-19. It was written and animated long before anyone had heard of coronavirus. The clam flu is a fictional disease in a fictional underwater world. But because it aired during a real pandemic, it became unavoidably connected to that real-world event. The episode's innocent comedy about disease paranoia transformed into something that felt inappropriate and tone-deaf. Unlike some banned episodes that contain genuinely problematic content, Quarantined Crab wasn't pulled because anything in the episode was wrong. It was pulled purely because of timing. The exact same episode that was too controversial in 2020 became acceptable again in 2022. This shows how context can completely change whether content is appropriate. The episode stands as proof that even something as harmless as SpongeBob SquarePants can become caught up in real-world events. A silly story about characters throwing each other into a freezer became unairably sensitive because reality matched fiction in the worst possible way. When the real-world crisis passed, the episode could finally be seen for what it always was, just another SpongeBob adventure with no malicious intent. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to the major deleted scenes. First up, we've got Just One Bite. The SpongeBob episode with a deleted scene so dangerous it got cut forever. Squidward spends an entire day insisting he hates Krabby Patties and has never eaten one. By the end of the episode, he breaks into the Krusty Krab at night, desperate to eat as many as possible. But the version that aired in October 2001 contained a violent security system scene that would be cut from every future broadcast. This 40-second sequence showed Squidward getting burned by gasoline twice, and Nickelodeon decided it was too dangerous for children to watch. The episode Just One Bite first aired on the 5th of October 2001 as part of SpongeBob's third season. It aired with the complete gasoline scene intact. But starting in 2002, Nickelodeon removed the scene from all future broadcasts. Today, if you watch this episode on television, streaming services, or most DVDs, you will see an edited version that skips directly from Squidward approaching the restaurant to him standing inside the patty vault. The missing 40 seconds show Squidward triggering a brutal security system that sets him on fire twice. Squidward claims he hates Krabby Patties. The episode begins at the Krusty Krab during business hours. Squidward hands a customer named Harold his food, a king-size Ultra Krabby Supreme with the works, double batter fried on a stick. After Harold walks away, Squidward mutters, "Barnacle Head," under his breath. Harold returns, thinking Squidward called him that name. Squidward covers by saying, "Harold forgot his mayonnaise." As Harold sits down to eat, Squidward watches in disgust. He says the customers are eating garbage. He calls them sickening. He declares that he hates Krabby Patties. SpongeBob hears this from the kitchen window and starts laughing. He thinks Squidward is making a joke, because everyone loves Krabby Patties. Squidward insists he's serious. He really doesn't like them. SpongeBob jumps on top of the kitchen window and shouts to all the customers that Squidward says he doesn't like Krabby Patties. Everyone in the restaurant laughs. Squidward yells at SpongeBob not to encourage them because they'll never leave. SpongeBob apologizes but says it's just so funny. All the customers suddenly appear in the kitchen and recite together. The only people who don't like a Krabby Patty have never tasted one. Squidward responds that describes him perfectly. He's never had one and never will. SpongeBob is so shocked that he flips a Krabby Patty straight through the ceiling. He cleans out his ears, thinking he heard wrong. When Squidward repeats that he's never had a Krabby Patty, SpongeBob puts on glasses and takes out a dictionary, wondering if it's even possible to use those words together in a sentence. SpongeBob's mission to make Squidward try one. SpongeBob becomes obsessed with getting Squidward to try a Krabby Patty. He runs out of the kitchen holding one, saying this explains why Squidward is always so miserable. Squidward slaps it out of SpongeBob's hand, calling it garbage. SpongeBob insists that if Squidward tries it, he'll love it. Squidward refuses, calling them radioactive sludge balls. He sarcastically suggests that next SpongeBob will want him to go square dancing with Patrick. The camera pans over to show Patrick dressed as a cowboy. Standing ready, SpongeBob whispers an apology to Patrick, who sighs and walks away sadly. SpongeBob continues his attempts. He does the airplane game, pretending the patty is a train going into a tunnel. Squidward slaps it away. SpongeBob reaches behind Squidward's ear and pulls out a patty like a magic trick. Squidward tells him to quit it. Squidward finally delivers an extreme declaration, N.E.T. If he was trapped at the bottom of a well for 3 years with nothing to eat but a Krabby Patty, he would eat his own legs first. And not just the extra ones. SpongeBob argues that Krabby Patties are good for Squidward. When Squidward protests that they're a heart attack on a bun, SpongeBob clarifies he meant good for Squidward's soul. The background transforms into a heavenly sky, with SpongeBob wearing angel wings and a halo while doves fly and a choir sings. Squidward declares he has no soul. The background immediately shifts to fire with flying bats and evil laughter. Squidward looks surprised and uncomfortable, then walks away. The harassment continues throughout the day. SpongeBob offers Squidward half a patty, then a quarter, then just one bite. Squidward refuses everything. When Squidward enters the bathroom, SpongeBob appears in a stall offering the patty. Squidward slams the door, pointing out that if he didn't want it outside, why would he want it in a bathroom? SpongeBob rises from the dishwater as a bubble sculpture holding a patty. Squidward pops all the bubbles. SpongeBob pops out of the cash register with coins on his head. SpongeBob appears in the garbage can made of fruit and trash. Finally, SpongeBob handcuffs himself to Squidward, showing how desperate he is. Squidward grabs the patty and tells SpongeBob that when he dies, SpongeBob needs to stay away from his funeral. Squidward looks at the patty as juice drips from it. He stretches his mouth open and takes a tiny bite. SpongeBob's eyes turn into red hearts. Squidward's fake reaction. Squidward starts to say the Krabby Patty may be the most wonderful thing ever. But mid-sentence, he switches to calling it horrible, putrid, poorly prepared, vile, unappetizing, and disgusting. SpongeBob's eyes turn into atomic explosions. Squidward throws the patty on the ground and curses it. He stomps on it, smashes it with a wooden plank, and puts a tombstone on top of it that reads, "RIP" with a picture of a patty. SpongeBob says this doesn't make sense. The Krabby Patty is an absolute good. Nobody is immune to its tasty charms. Squidward insists he's the exception. SpongeBob asks if Squidward is sure. Squidward's face becomes extremely wrinkled as he asks if that looks unsure. SpongeBob admits it doesn't. Squidward tells him to go spread the word. SpongeBob walks back inside with tears in his eyes. The moment the door closes, Squidward gasps and starts digging frantically for the patty he just buried. He finds it covered in sand and shoves the whole thing in his mouth. He cries about how delicious it is and all the years he wasted. He licks the ground and shouts that he needs more. Squidward runs to the back door of the Krusty Krab but stops himself. His eyes float to the side of his face as he peeks through the window at SpongeBob cooking. He realizes that after his performance, SpongeBob would never let him live it down. He decides he needs to sneak just one more patty, then he'll quit for good. Squidward's failed attempts to get more. Inside, SpongeBob sadly reflects that he didn't think it was possible, but some people just don't like Krabby Patties. Squidward appears at the window and orders a triple Krabby Supreme on a kelp bun with extra sea pickles, burned to a crisp. As SpongeBob cooks, he apologizes to Squidward for earlier. He says he was trying to make Squidward happy, but deep down he was trying to make himself happy. SpongeBob gives a speech about how there's room for all kinds of people in the ocean, and they don't all have to like the same things. While he strongly disagrees with Squidward's decision, he accepts it. The steam from the cooking patties forms a figure that kisses Squidward's nose. Squidward whispers, "Don't go," as it disappears. SpongeBob finishes the patty and says he wants to see the look on the customer's face when they take the first bite. He walks out of the kitchen, calling for whoever ordered the triple Krabby Supreme. When nobody responds, he says they must have left. Squidward suggests leaving it out in case they come back. SpongeBob refuses, saying a patty this special should be eaten fresh. Since he hasn't had one in over 20 minutes, he eats the entire thing in one bite. Squidward gasps, groans, and starts crying. Squidward desperately asks what he has to do. Eat one out of the garbage? A customer named Frank walks up to the trash with a partially eaten patty, wishing he could finish it but saying he's too full. He drops it in the garbage. Squidward runs to the trash can and eats almost everything inside. When he lifts his head, the Krabby Patty is the only thing left. He sticks out his tongue to reveal all the other garbage he ate, spits it out, and grabs the patty. SpongeBob runs over and snatches it from Squidward's hand, declaring it should be cremated since it was in the trash. He throws it in the furnace and cries. When Squidward walks up, SpongeBob says he knows Squidward didn't like the patty, but it means so much that he came to pay respects. Squidward starts crying in frustration. The dream sequence. The scene shifts to nighttime. Squidward sits in his house crying when he hears a knock on the door. He answers to find a giant Krabby Patty standing there. Squidward kisses it and sighs happily. The dream sequence shows Squidward having dinner with the patty, marrying it in a ceremony, having a child with it, and growing old together. When the dream ends, Squidward wakes up and declares that he must get his hands on a Krabby Patty, and nobody will stop him. Squidward runs out of his house panting, but tiptoes quietly past SpongeBob's house so he won't wake him. He continues panting until he reaches the Krusty Krab. He puts his face against the door and sees the interior of the restaurant. He mutters that there it is, unguarded, and all he has to do is get inside. The deleted security system scene. This is where the deleted scene originally appeared. In the uncut version that aired on the 5th of October 2001, Squidward notices something dripping from above the door. He looks up and sees a bucket. He says out loud, "This is our burglar alarm? A bucket of water?" He laughs at how silly this security system is. Squidward opens the door, knocking the bucket off in the process. The liquid spills all over him. He says that was too easy. Then he sniffs the liquid and realizes something is wrong. His expression changes to horror as he shouts, "Hey, this isn't water, this is gas." A robotic arm appears holding a lit match. It drops the match onto Squidward, who is now covered in gasoline. He bursts into flames and starts screaming. He runs through the restaurant on fire until he reaches the kitchen door. When he opens it, another bucket of gasoline falls on him. The match drops again and he catches fire a second time, screaming even louder. This entire sequence lasts approximately 40 seconds. After the second fire, the scene continues with Squidward approaching the patty vault. How the edited version changed the scene. In the edited version that has aired since 2002, the scene plays very differently. After Squidward says, "There it is," unguarded, the camera simply zooms in on the patty vault door. There is no bucket of water, no gasoline, no robotic arm, and no fire. The scene cuts directly to Squidward standing in front of the patty vault, wide-eyed and ready to open it. The edit is noticeable because of the abrupt transition, and because Squidward's appearance doesn't match. He should look burned and disheveled from the security system, but instead he looks completely normal. Inside the patty vault, Squidward opens the patty vault door to reveal hundreds and hundreds of Krabby Patties stacked everywhere. He gasps and says, "Holy shrimp!" He doesn't know where to start. He picks up a patty and says all that matters is that it's just him and the patty and nobody else. SpongeBob's voice calls out, "Squidward? Is that you?" Squidward's face drops. He turns around to see SpongeBob standing there. Squidward stammers, asking what SpongeBob is doing here. SpongeBob explains he always comes to work at 3 a.m. because that's when he counts the sesame seeds. He takes off his hat and asks what Squidward is doing there. Squidward tries to make excuses, but SpongeBob keeps asking questions. Why is the patty vault open? Why is Squidward holding a patty behind his back? Why is he acting so nervous? Why is he sweating so much? Why does he look so hungry? SpongeBob asks these questions while grinning smugly, knowing exactly what's happening. Squidward jumps up and down, insisting it's not what SpongeBob thinks, that it's a big misunderstanding, that SpongeBob needs to listen to him. SpongeBob finally asks directly, "You like Krabby Patties, don't you, Squidward?" Squidward starts sweating profusely. He slams the door on SpongeBob and screams his confession. Yes, he admits it. He loves Krabby Patties. He immediately starts eating them. Squidward's eating frenzy. SpongeBob says he knew it all along. Nobody can resist a Krabby Patty. Squidward goes into a complete frenzy, eating Krabby Patties in every way possible. He eats them one at a time, multiple at once, even a dozen at a time. SpongeBob asks how many Squidward is eating. Squidward dives into the pile of patties while laughing and continues eating them, Pac-Man style, opening and closing his mouth as he moves through them like a video game character. SpongeBob warns that Squidward can't eat all those patties at one time. Squidward stops and asks what's going to happen. Is he going to blow up? SpongeBob says no, something worse. The patties will go right to Squidward's thighs. Squidward looks shocked and asks, "My thighs?" The camera pans down to show Squidward's legs have become enormously fat and swollen. SpongeBob adds, "And then you'll blow up." The Krusty Krab explodes. The scene cuts to the inside of an ambulance. Squidward's head sits on the bench while his tentacles are in a bucket held by a paramedic named Joe. Joe laughs and says, "Yeah, I remember my first Krabby Patty." The screen goes black, and the episode ends. Why the security system scene was deleted? The deleted security system scene aired exactly one time on its original broadcast date of the 5th of October 2001. This was less than 1 month after the September 11 terrorist attacks. For years, many people assumed the scene was removed because of sensitivity to 9/11. The attacks involved explosions and fire, so it seemed logical that Nickelodeon would remove a scene showing a character catching fire. However, this theory is incorrect. The episode aired with the scene intact on the 5th of October 2001, nearly a month after September 11. If Nickelodeon had concerns about the scene being too similar to the attacks, they would have cut it before the first broadcast. Instead, the scene was removed in 2002, several months after the original airing. In 2018, Vincent Waller, the current showrunner of SpongeBob SquarePants, explained the real reason on Twitter. The scene was removed due to a standards and practices issue. Nickelodeon's Standards and Practices Department is responsible for ensuring content is appropriate for children. They decided they were against the idea of a gag involving a match and gasoline. The concern was that children might try to imitate what they saw on screen, leading to serious injuries or death. The fear was not unrealistic. Children have been known to copy dangerous stunts they see on television. A scene that shows gasoline being poured on someone, followed by that person being set on fire, could potentially inspire a child to experiment with gasoline and matches. Even though the scene is animated and played for comedy, young viewers might not understand the real-world consequences of playing with flammable liquids. The decision to remove the scene came from Nickelodeon's desire to avoid any possibility of a child getting hurt while imitating SpongeBob. The fact that Squidward catches fire twice in the scene likely made it even more concerning. The repetition could be seen as emphasizing the fun of the gag rather than showing it as dangerous. Where you can still see the uncut version. Despite being cut from American broadcasts, the original uncut version still exists and can be seen in certain places. The scene continues to air on Canadian television channels, including YTV and Nickelodeon Canada. It also airs in South Korea on EBS, in Serbia on B92, and in Bengali on Duranto. These countries apparently have different standards for children's programming, or their broadcasters chose not to edit the scene. However, the edited version has become standard almost everywhere else. All DVDs released in the United States contain the edited version. VHS tapes contain the edited version. The iTunes digital purchase version is edited. Amazon Prime Video shows the edited version. Paramount Plus, Nickelodeon's main streaming service, streams the edited version. Even the Video Now portable video player versions from the 2000s contain the edited version. The one exception in North America is the Canadian version of Apple TV Plus with a Nick Plus subscription, which reportedly shows the uncut version. This appears to be because Canadian broadcasts retain the scene, so the Canadian streaming version matches the Canadian television version. For Americans who want to see the original scene, their best option is finding it on YouTube or other video sharing sites. Fans have uploaded the deleted 40 seconds many times over the years. These uploads usually come from old VHS recordings of the original, the 5th of October 2001 broadcast, or from Canadian television airings. The quality varies, but the scene can be watched online, even though it's been removed from official American releases. The episode's legacy. Just One Bite remains one of the most popular episodes in SpongeBob history, even with the deleted scene. The episode is frequently ranked on lists of the best SpongeBob episodes. Fans love Squidward's character development from absolutely hating Krabby Patties to becoming completely obsessed with them. The dream sequence where Squidward marries a giant Krabby Patty is memorable and frequently referenced. The deleted scene has become famous in its own right. SpongeBob fans consider it one of the most well-known pieces of cut content from the series. Unlike some deleted scenes that are forgotten, this one maintained interest because it aired at least once, and because copies survived in Canada and other countries. The scene appears in many deleted SpongeBob scenes videos on YouTube and is frequently discussed in fan communities. The editing creates an unusual situation where two versions of the episode exist. The uncut version from October 2001 represents the creator's original vision. The edited version from 2002 onward represents Nickelodeon's determination that the original scene was too dangerous for children. Both versions tell the same story, but the uncut version includes 40 seconds of violent slapstick comedy that the network decided crossed a line. Interestingly, later SpongeBob episodes have included other scenes involving fire and explosions. The season 13 episode SpongeBob on Parade features a gag with a match and gasoline in its climax. This suggests that Nickelodeon's standards may have changed over time, or that the specific setup in Just One Bite was uniquely problematic. The double fire gag, showing Squidward catching fire, running away, and then immediately catching fire again, may have been seen as especially likely to encourage imitation. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to the second episode in the deleted scenes category, we've got Procrastination, the SpongeBob episode with 3 deleted scenes that came back. SpongeBob has to write an 800-word essay about what not to do at a stoplight. Instead of writing, he spends the entire night cleaning his house, calling Patrick, and having a nightmare about his pants running away. The episode originally included 3 scenes that got cut from American television in 2005. SpongeBob looks out the window and sees Patrick rubbing sunscreen on Sandy. He imagines a car crash. He does exercises while his nose flexes in a way that looked inappropriate. These scenes disappeared from broadcast for 14 years before Nickelodeon brought them back in 2019. Procrastination is episode 37A from SpongeBob's second season. It first aired on the 19th of October 2001 with all 3 scenes intact. American audiences watched the complete version for several years. But in May 2005, Nickelodeon edited the episode and removed over 1 minute of content. The edited version became standard for all American broadcasts, DVDs, streaming services, and digital purchases. Meanwhile, international broadcasts in countries like the UK and Canada kept showing the uncut version. The deleted scenes created a noticeable gap in the episode. The music wasn't even edited to match the cuts. SpongeBob would be looking at something, then suddenly the scene would jump forward with no explanation. On the 3rd of October 2019, Nicktoons USA started airing the restored version with all deleted scenes included. Nearly 5 years later, on the 22nd of September 2024, Nickelodeon USA also began showing the complete episode. Unlike Midlife Crustacean, which remains banned, or Just One Bite, which stayed edited, Procrastination successfully got all its deleted content restored. Mrs. Puff assigns the essay. The episode begins in Mrs. Puff's boating school classroom. She tells the class to get out their pencils and paper and write down the assignment. The students all groan. SpongeBob leans toward a student named Nat and excitedly says, "Did you hear that? We get an assignment." Mrs. Puff explains that everyone must write an essay on what not to do at a stoplight. The class groans again. SpongeBob leans toward Nat again and repeats, "Did you hear that? What not to do at a stoplight?" Mrs. Puff adds that the essay must be no less than 800 words. She squeals excitedly while the class groans for a third time. Nat mocks SpongeBob by leaning toward him and sarcastically asking, "Did you hear that? 800 words!" SpongeBob excitedly responds, "Yeah, I know!" Nat frowns at him. Mrs. Puff announces the essay is due tomorrow. She reminds the class to work hard and no goofing off. The scene transitions to SpongeBob's house. SpongeBob begins procrastinating. SpongeBob sits at his desk and tells Gary that there will be no goofing off. He's about to write the greatest essay of all time. He explains that like most great essays, it will be written on paper. He places paper on his desk. He says even more important than the paper is the pencil. He holds up a pencil, noting it can be as sharp or as dull as he likes. SpongeBob talks to the pencil, commenting that as his ideas grow, the pencil shrinks. He kisses it and little hearts fly out. He looks out the window and says he couldn't have asked for a more beautiful day to write an essay. Outside looks colorful and inviting. He begins writing the title, "What Not to Do at a Stoplight." He gets excited, saying this is easy. He writes, "By SpongeBob SquarePants" underneath. SpongeBob declares the essay is pure gold. He tells the pencil to get ready because here they go. The clock is shown. Several hours pass. SpongeBob has still only written those two lines, the title and his name. He says, "Gee, this is harder than I thought." The first deleted scene, window view. This is where the first deleted scene appears in the uncut version. SpongeBob looks outside where everyone is having fun. Patrick is at the beach, applying lotion on Sandy's shoulders. Patrick calls out, "Come on, SpongeBob," inviting him to join. SpongeBob looks tempted but goes back to his desk. In the edited version that aired from 2005 to 2019, this entire sequence is missing. The episode jumps from SpongeBob saying, "Gee, this is harder than I thought," directly to him complaining about having to write on such a beautiful day. The abrupt transition is noticeable because the music continues without any adjustment to match the cut. Why was this scene removed? The most common theory is that Patrick rubbing lotion on Sandy's shoulders looked inappropriate. From certain angles, it might appear that Patrick is unhooking Sandy's bikini top rather than applying sunscreen. Nickelodeon's Standards and Practices department likely felt this visual was too suggestive for a children's show. Back to the story. SpongeBob complains that it should be against the law to have to write an essay on such a super sailorific sunshiny day, but he says he must press onward because completing this essay will bring him one step closer to his driver's license. The second deleted scene, the car crash. This is where the second deleted scene appears in the uncut version. As SpongeBob thinks about getting his driver's license, the screen shows live-action footage of a drag race. A race car speeds forward, hits a wall, tumbles violently, and gets back up. This is actual real-world footage of a car crash, not animation. In the edited version from 2005 to 2019, this entire car crash sequence is cut. The episode jumps from SpongeBob mentioning his driver's license directly to him saying, "Oh yeah, this'll be no problemo." The reason for removing this scene is unclear. Some fans speculate it was cut because the violent car crash was considered too intense for children. Others believe it was removed simply to save time and make room for more commercials. The scene only lasts a few seconds, but shows a realistic and potentially frightening accident. SpongeBob continues stalling. SpongeBob tells himself this will be no problem because he has plenty of time. It's only 6 o'clock. He struggles to write and decides he needs to get blood pumping in his brain. The third deleted scene, calisthenics. This is where the third deleted scene appears in the uncut version. SpongeBob decides to do some calisthenics to get his blood flowing. He does exercises while repeatedly saying, "Hup-hoo." As he exercises, his nose and even his eyelashes move up and down in rhythm, also saying, "Hup-hoo." The scene emphasizes the movement of his nose in particular. In the edited version from 2005 to 2019, this entire exercise sequence is cut. The episode jumps from SpongeBob saying he needs to get blood pumping directly to him saying, "I can feel those juices pumping now." The removal of this scene has a darker explanation. According to fan discussions, SpongeBob's nose movements during the exercise routine were seen as resembling something inappropriate. The way his nose flexed up and down was interpreted by some as phallic imagery. This sounds absurd, it's just a cartoon nose moving during exercise, but Nickelodeon apparently decided the visual could be misinterpreted and removed it. The removal of this scene creates a significant continuity error. In the uncut version, SpongeBob falls asleep at his desk during the calisthenics. He collapses onto the desk in the exact position he's in when he wakes up at the end of the episode. Without the calisthenics scene, the edited version never shows when or how SpongeBob fell asleep. He's working on his essay, then suddenly he's waking up with no explanation of what happened in between. The rest of the episode. After the deleted scenes, the episode continues with SpongeBob procrastinating in increasingly absurd ways. He moves his chair back and forth, making squeaking sounds. He feeds Gary even though Gary isn't hungry, filling the bowl up to the ceiling. He cleans the entire kitchen until it's sparkling chrome. He writes the word "the" in fancy lettering and takes a break. SpongeBob calls Patrick in the middle of the night. Patrick answers the phone while sleeping, and SpongeBob tries to have a conversation about Patrick's dreams. Patrick cuts him off and says they both know SpongeBob is just using him as a distraction to avoid writing the essay. SpongeBob tries to deny this. Patrick hangs up. SpongeBob struggles with eraser shavings floating around his desk. He swallows one and runs to get water. He gets hungry and opens the refrigerator, debating between white bread, rye bread, or pumpernickel. The doorbell rings. A mailman delivers a package. SpongeBob tries to have a conversation about whether mailmen deliver mail to other mailmen. The mailman asks if SpongeBob has a paper to write and walks away. SpongeBob turns on the television. A realistic fishhead newscaster announces that local resident SpongeBob SquarePants only has a few hours left to complete his essay, and yet he continues to goof off. The head sticks out of the screen and asks when SpongeBob will learn. SpongeBob screams and karate chops the TV. The nightmare sequence. Midnight arrives. SpongeBob panics and runs through a hallway of clocks, with all the alarms ringing. He must get back to his desk. The table has grown enormous. He jumps up on the chair and notices his pants are missing. His pants call out from below, saying, "Yoo-hoo, down here!" SpongeBob tells them to get back up, but the pants run out the door shouting, "Freedom!" SpongeBob chases his pants outside. The door closes and locks behind him. He looks through the window. The clock spins, breaks, and comes to life. It speaks in a ghostly voice saying, "Time's up, SpongeBob." The candle flame becomes a living character who laughs sinisterly and says, "Only 799 words to go." The flame burns SpongeBob's essay. SpongeBob's entire house catches on fire. He runs around screaming for help. His house comes to life and asks why SpongeBob set it on fire, why he didn't just write his essay. The house wails, "Stop wasting time." SpongeBob wakes up and finishes. SpongeBob wakes up at his desk. He looks around confused, asking where his essay is. He notices the paper stuck to his forehead. He must have dozed off. He looks at the paper and sees only the word "the" is written. He slowly looks at the clock and gasps, "It's almost 9 o'clock. Class starts in 5 minutes." SpongeBob panics about how he'll write the whole paper in 5 minutes. Then he realizes the answer. Everything he did that night is something not to do at a stoplight. Feeding your snail is something not to do at a stoplight. Making a sandwich, lighting candles, drinking water, calling your friends, karate chopping the TV, talking to the mailman, and falling asleep, while all things not to do at a stoplight. He frantically writes everything down. SpongeBob runs to the boating school yelling for Mrs. Puff. He announces he's finished all 800 words. He goes inside, but nobody is there. Mrs. Puff appears and SpongeBob hands her the essay. Mrs. Puff says she tried to call him. Number 2, she has to go to a teacher's convention. She decided to cancel the assignment. Instead, they're just going to take a field trip to a stoplight. She'll see him next week. SpongeBob smiles. He rips his essay in half, then rips himself in half as the episode ends. Why the scenes were removed. The 3 deleted scenes were removed from American broadcasts starting in May 2005, approximately 4 years after the episode first aired. Nickelodeon never officially explained why. The decision appears to have come from their Standards and Practices department reviewing older episodes and deciding certain content was no longer appropriate. The Patrick and Sandy scene likely seemed too suggestive. The car crash footage may have been considered too violent. The calisthenics scene with the nose movements apparently looked inappropriate. These decisions seem overly cautious to many fans, especially considering the episode aired without problems for 4 years. The content that was acceptable in 2001 became unacceptable in 2005 as network standards changed. The editing created problems for viewers. The music wasn't adjusted to match the cuts, creating awkward silent moments. The continuity suffered, especially with SpongeBob's unexplained position at his desk. The episode felt incomplete and choppy. But for 14 years, this edited version was all American audiences could watch. International broadcasts kept the scenes. While America edited the episode, international broadcasts continued showing the complete version. The UK aired the uncut episode on television. Canada showed all 3 deleted scenes. These countries either had different broadcasting standards or simply chose not to edit content that had aired for years without complaint. American SpongeBob fans who learned about the deleted scenes had to search online to see them. Fans with Canadian television access could watch the complete version. Others found clips uploaded to YouTube. The deleted scenes became well known in fan communities as examples of unnecessary censorship. The restoration. On the 3rd of October 2019, something unexpected happened. Nicktoons USA, a cable channel that airs SpongeBob reruns, started broadcasting Procrastination, with all 3 deleted scenes restored. The scenes were even upscaled to HD quality to match the rest of the episode. After 14 years, American audiences could finally watch the complete version on television again. However, Nickelodeon's main channel continued airing the edited version. For nearly 5 more years, viewers saw different versions depending on which channel they watched. The situation created confusion. The episode was simultaneously censored and uncensored on different American networks owned by the same company. On the 22nd of September 2024, Nickelodeon USA finally began airing the restored version on their main channel. The complete episode with all deleted scenes intact became standard across all American broadcasts. The scenes that had been cut for 19 years were officially back. Current availability. Today, Procrastination is available in its complete form on Paramount+. All DVDs released in recent years contain the uncut version. Amazon Prime Video streams the complete episode. New viewers watching SpongeBob from the beginning will see the full episode exactly as it was originally created. The episode stands as an unusual case in SpongeBob history. Unlike Midlife Crustacean, which was permanently banned, or Just One Bite, which remains edited in America, Procrastination went through a complete cycle of deletion and restoration. Content that was removed eventually came back. Standards that seemed permanent in 2005 relaxed by 2019. The episode's legacy. Procrastination is beloved by fans for its relatable story about putting off work until the last minute. SpongeBob's elaborate methods of avoiding his essay, DAI, cleaning, calling friends, making food, reflect real procrastination behavior. The nightmare sequence with his pants running away and his house catching fire represents the anxiety of deadlines. The ironic ending where the assignment gets canceled after he finally finishes provides a darkly funny conclusion. The deleted scenes controversy added another layer to the episode's history. What should have been a straightforward story about procrastination became an example of how television censorship works. Content deemed acceptable can become unacceptable years later. Scenes that aired without problems can suddenly be considered inappropriate. But sometimes, if enough time passes and standards change again, deleted content can be restored. The 3 deleted scenes total about 1 minute of runtime. They don't change the plot or message of the episode. SpongeBob procrastinates whether or not viewers see Patrick with sunscreen, a car crash, or calisthenics. But those scenes were part of the original creative vision. Removing them edited the work without the creator's input. Restoring them honors the episode as it was meant to be seen. Procrastination now exists in its complete form again after nearly 2 decades of censorship. The episode about putting things off eventually stopped putting off its own restoration. American audiences can finally watch SpongeBob exercise with his nose moving, see the car crash imagination, and witness Patrick applying sunscreen to Sandy, exactly as viewers did on the 19th of October 2001. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Sailor Mouth, the SpongeBob episode with lost uncensored audio that will never be released. SpongeBob and Patrick discover graffiti on a dumpster behind the Krusty Krab. They learn what they think is a sentence enhancer, a fancy word to sprinkle into conversation. They use it repeatedly throughout the restaurant until Mr. Krabs explains it's actually bad word number 11 out of 13 swear words. The episode became famous because the voice actors actually swore during recording, creating an uncensored version that was never aired. This lost audio has been confirmed to exist by multiple cast members, but Nickelodeon has never released it and likely never will. Sailor Mouth is episode 38, A from SpongeBob's second season. It aired on the 21st of September 2001, with all profanity censored by dolphin noises and other nautical sounds. But during the recording session, something unusual happened. Voice actor Tom Kenny, who voices SpongeBob, revealed in interviews that the cast was given permission to actually say real curse words while recording. Nickelodeon then replaced those words with sound effects in post-production. This means somewhere in Nickelodeon's archives, there exists audio of SpongeBob, Patrick, and Mr. Krabs saying actual profanity. The episode was inspired by a real childhood experience. Creative director Derek Drymon got in trouble as a child for using the F word in front of his mother. The scene where Patrick runs to Mr. Krabs to tattle, with SpongeBob chasing him, is based on how it happened in real life. The end of the episode where Mr. Krabs uses more profanity than SpongeBob and Patrick was inspired by Drymon's mother having a sailor mouth herself. SpongeBob discovers dumpster writing. The episode begins at night with Mr. Krabs closing the Krusty Krab. He sighs and says it's the worst time of day. Closing time. SpongeBob says goodbye, but Mr. Krabs grabs his face and pulls him back. He tells SpongeBob to take that pile of filth out with him. Squidward holds up a trash bag with flies buzzing around it. SpongeBob gasps and says Mr. Krabs shouldn't talk about Squidward like that. Squidward clarifies that Mr. Krabs means the actual trash, not him. SpongeBob walks to the dumpster, singing a little song about taking out the trash. He throws the bags in and notices writing on the side of the dumpster. He reads it out loud, calling it dumpster writing, the voice of the people. The graffiti includes messages like up with bubbles, down with air, and nematodes are people too. SpongeBob laughs at both. He finds one that says Squidward smells, but appears unfinished. SpongeBob decides to complete it by writing the word good after it, making it say Squidward smells good. He laughs at his addition. Then he finds another piece of graffiti that says, "Crabs is a," followed by a word SpongeBob doesn't recognize. He reads it out loud, and the word is censored by a dolphin chirp sound. A garbage man picking up trash nearby hears SpongeBob say the word. He looks disgusted and asks, "Do you kiss your mother with that mouth?" SpongeBob responds, "Well, sometimes, but not recently." The garbage man picks up his bags and leaves. Patrick teaches sentence enhancers. Patrick appears and greets SpongeBob. SpongeBob asks Patrick if he knows what the word means. Patrick looks at the graffiti and identifies crabs as the red, sweaty guy SpongeBob works for. SpongeBob clarifies he's not asking about that word, he's asking about the other word. Patrick says the censored word and claims he knows what it means. It's one of those sentence enhancers. SpongeBob asks what sentence enhancers are. Patrick explains that you use them when you want to talk fancy. You just sprinkle them over anything you say and you've got yourself a spicy sentence sandwich. SpongeBob decides to try it. He clears his throat and says, "Hello, Patrick. Lovely dolphin chirp day we're having, isn't it?" Patrick responds enthusiastically that yes, it is. And this dolphin chirp day is particularly dolphin chirp lovely. SpongeBob agrees that Patrick is dolphin chirp right. They continue using the word back and forth several times. SpongeBob comments that his lips are tingling from the spiciness of this conversation. Patrick says his lips are tingling too. They laugh together. SpongeBob says it tingles when he laughs. Using the word at work. The next day, SpongeBob walks into the Krusty Krab and opens the doors. He greets the customers saying, "It's a nice dolphin chirp day." All the customers stop eating and stare in shock. A fish named Harold gasps and asks if SpongeBob just said what he thinks he said. A pirate confirms that yes, he did. SpongeBob walks up to Patrick and asks how the dolphin chirp he is. Patrick, sitting at a table, responds that he's pretty dolphin chirp good. Old Man Jenkins complains that he thought this was a restaurant, not a guttermouth convention. SpongeBob taps on the microphone and makes an announcement. Today's special is a dolphin chirp Krabby Patty, served in a greasy dolphin chirp sauce, and grilled to dolphin chirp perfection. The customers continue looking shocked. One fish drops his patty, another stops chewing, and his food floats in midair. A mother octopus tries to cover her children's ears but doesn't have enough tentacles for all of them, so she dumps soda on the last child's head. SpongeBob continues the announcement, saying not to forget to ask them to dolphin chirp the dolphin chirp fries. It will be their dolphin chirp pleasure. Squidward hears this through the intercom and a giant human ear pops out of his head in shock. He pushes it back in. SpongeBob greets Squidward asking how the dolphin chirp he is. Patrick tells Squidward it's a nice dolphin chirp day. A fish named Tom comments that he doesn't understand. That guy's talented. He doesn't have to work blue. Another fish suggests they go somewhere more family-oriented. All the customers leave the restaurant grumbling in frustration about foul-mouthed bottom feeders. Mr. Krabs responds. The Krusty Krab customer meter runs down to 0. Sirens wail and a red light flashes. Mr. Krabs is in the bathroom when he hears the sirens. He looks through a periscope, sees the restaurant is empty, and gasps. He runs to the dining room with toilet paper stuck to his leg. He shouts commands to batten the front doors and brace the cash register. He asks Squidward where all his beautiful paying customers have gone. Squidward explains that apparently the two barnacle-mouth brothers just learned a new word, and SpongeBob said it over the intercom. Mr. Krabs demands to know what word SpongeBob said. Squidward whispers it to him. Mr. Krabs can't hear and asks him to repeat it. Squidward whispers again. Mr. Krabs gasps. Mr. Krabs calls SpongeBob and Patrick to front and center. He says he ought to make them paint the Krusty Krab for using such language. SpongeBob protests that they were only using their sentence enhancers. Patrick agrees, saying it's fancy talk. Mr. Krabs yells that there's nothing fancy about that word. SpongeBob asks if he means dolphin chirp. Mr. Krabs confirms yes, that one, and tells them to quit saying it. Both SpongeBob and Patrick stand up straight and frown. Mr. Krabs explains it's a bad word. SpongeBob and Patrick repeat bad word in shock and regretfully wipe their tongues while moaning. Mr. Krabs confirms it's bad word number 11. In fact, there are 13 bad words they should never use. Squidward interrupts to ask if Mr. Krabs means there are only 7 bad words. Mr. Krabs responds, "Not if you're a sailor," and laughs. SpongeBob says, "Wow, 13 words." Patrick comments, "That's a lot of dolphin chirp bad words." Mr. Krabs makes the boys promise they'll never use that word again. SpongeBob and Patrick both promise, playing eels and escalators. Later, at SpongeBob's house, SpongeBob and Patrick play a board game called Eels and Escalators. SpongeBob says he's glad Mr. Krabs told them the word was bad. Patrick agrees, saying classy sophisticates like them shouldn't stain their lips with cursing. SpongeBob responds, "Yay, verily," and suggests they play a nice, wholesome game. Patrick gets excited and flops his arms like a seal. SpongeBob rolls the dice, saying Gary needs a new pair of shoes. Patrick announces SpongeBob got eels and has to ride the eel. SpongeBob says darn and moves his piece. Patrick rolls and gets escalators. He laughs and moves his piece up, up, up. SpongeBob rolls and gets eels again. Patrick rolls and gets escalators again. The game continues with Patrick consistently getting escalators, while SpongeBob keeps getting eels. Patrick explains this is SpongeBob's last chance. If he gets eels again, he loses. SpongeBob gets frustrated while rolling, hoping for escalators. The dice land on escalators and SpongeBob celebrates, but the dice flip over to show eels. Patrick confirms it's eels. SpongeBob gets angry and says dolphin chirp, then quickly covers his mouth, realizing his mistake. Patrick gasps and says SpongeBob said number 11. SpongeBob babbles, trying to explain he didn't mean it. Things just slip out. Patrick has to understand. Patrick pauses and says he understands. Then he jumps up and starts running out the door, yelling for Mr. Krabs. The race to tell Mr. Krabs. SpongeBob chases Patrick, screaming his name. He catches up and begs Patrick not to tell. Patrick says, but SpongeBob said the bad word. As Patrick says it, he realizes he just used the word to and covers his mouth. SpongeBob announces he's going to tell Mr. Krabs on Patrick now. Patrick says, not if he tells first. SpongeBob says he can run faster and laughs. Patrick jumps on the back of an ice cream truck and rides it, laughing that he'll see SpongeBob at the Krusty Krab. But the truck turns left, away from the restaurant. Patrick shouts, "Oh no!" SpongeBob laughs and barges into the Krusty Krab, yelling for Mr. Krabs. Mr. Krabs asks what's wrong. SpongeBob keeps repeating Patrick's name. Mr. Krabs asks, what about Patrick? SpongeBob talks very fast, explaining that he and Patrick were playing eels and escalators. Patrick was going up, up, up. SpongeBob had to ride the eel. Then they ran and Patrick said some things. Mr. Krabs asks what kind of things. SpongeBob tries to explain Patrick said a certain word that Mr. Krabs said he shouldn't say, and this particular word happens to be number 11 inches, a list of 13 words. Mr. Krabs looks confused and asks SpongeBob to repeat that part. Patrick walks in eating an ice cream cone, throws it away, and starts yelling for Mr. Krabs. Both SpongeBob and Patrick talk at the same time, trying to explain that the other one said the word he shouldn't. They babble on until they're just pointing at each other and yelling gibberish. Mr. Krabs grabs their lips to quiet them. He says he's going to let go of their lips, and when he does, he wants them to calmly tell him what happened. They nod. He lets go, and they both immediately point at each other and shout, "He said dolphin chirp!" Mr. Krabs loses his temper. Mr. Krabs shrieks, asking if his ears deceive him. They should be ashamed. It's time to take out the trash. He picks both of them up by their pants and carries them outside. He says they need to be taught a lesson. He thought he made it clear. Never use number 11 or any of the 13 bad words. He tells them to wait right there and he'll be back. He walks inside. SpongeBob and Patrick shake with anxiety. Patrick asks what's going to happen to them. SpongeBob says they'll probably get 40 lashes. Patrick fearfully imagines himself with 40 thick eyelashes blinking. SpongeBob apologizes and says Mr. Krabs is right. There's no need for words like that. Patrick apologizes too. SpongeBob suggests they make a vow. From this day forward, a foul word shall never pass their lips. They will be good citizens, just like good old Mr. Krabs. Patrick shakes hands and agrees. Mr. Krabs returns carrying a ladder and paint cans. He announces that as punishment for fouling the air in his restaurant, they're going to paint the Krusty Krab from top to bottom. As Mr. Krabs explains the punishment, he steps on a rock. He hops on one leg and starts swearing extensively. Every word is censored by dolphin chirps, foghorns, seal barks, ship bells, seagull cries, and boat horns. He goes on a long rant about his foot and the rock. SpongeBob and Patrick count the bad words as he says them. The count reaches 5, 6, 7, 9, and continues. Mr. Krabs keeps swearing until SpongeBob holds up 13 fingers and announces that's all 13 bad words. Telling Mama Krabs. SpongeBob gasps and says they're going to tell Mr. Krabs' mom. Mr. Krabs becomes worried and begs them not to tell his mommy. SpongeBob and Patrick laugh and run toward Mama Krabs' house. Mr. Krabs chases after them, begging them to wait and not tell his mother, saying her little old heart can't take it. They all arrive at Mama Krabs' house, which is shaped like a giant pink anchor. SpongeBob and Patrick bang on the door yelling for Mama Krabs. Betsy Krabs opens the door and greets them. All three, 20 SpongeBob, Patrick, and Mr. Krabs, start talking at the same time, all using multiple censored curse words while explaining what happened. SpongeBob explains that Mr. Krabs said various bad words while pointing at Patrick and Mr. Krabs. Patrick cries that it was terrible. Mr. Krabs angrily calls them liars, using more censored profanity. SpongeBob continues explaining the stream of profanity he heard. Mama Krabs looks shocked, says, "Oh dear, my poor old heart," and faints. Mr. Krabs gasps and goes to his mother. He takes a coin from her pocket and tells SpongeBob and Patrick they should be ashamed, making an old lady faint with their sailor talk. Mama Krabs regains consciousness and says they should all be ashamed. If they're going to talk like sailors, they're going to work like sailors. The ending. The scene transitions to all three of them painting Mama Crab's house. Patrick is painting the sand. Mama Crabs brings them lemonade, saying they've earned it. She laughs in a Popeye-style voice. Then she stubs her foot on a rock and appears to curse. The sound is censored by a klaxon horn as she mouths words. SpongeBob and Patrick gasp in shock. Mr. Krabs looks horrified and says, "Mother?" Mama Crabs asks, "What?" and explains it's Old Man Jenkins and his jalopy. Old Man Jenkins drives by honking his horn and greeting Mrs. K. Everyone realizes the curse word they heard was actually just the car horn. They all laugh together as the episode ends. The uncensored version that never aired. The episode aired with all profanity, censored by sound effects. Dolphin chirps replaced the main bad word, referred to as number 11. Other curse words were censored with foghorns, seal barks, ship bells, and seagull cries. This creative censorship became one of the episode's most memorable aspects. The dolphin chirp sound is actually a sped-up call of a kookaburra originally used in the 1963 film Flipper. Steven Hillenburg, SpongeBob's creator, explained in a 2016 interview how the censorship came about. He pitched the idea that SpongeBob and Patrick learn a swear word. Everyone at Nickelodeon said no. He couldn't even use a bleep sound, so he decided to use a dolphin sound instead. The network apparently felt that animal sounds were more appropriate for a children's show than traditional bleeps. But here's where the story gets interesting. Voice actor Tom Kenny revealed in interviews that the recording process was different than expected. The cast initially tried using substitute fake words that would be replaced with sound effects later. They found this too difficult. It was hard to perform convincingly while saying nonsense words. Kenny said they asked Nickelodeon if they could actually swear during recording to make the performances more natural. Nickelodeon agreed. This means during the recording session, Tom Kenny actually said real curse words as SpongeBob. Bill Fagerbaki said real profanity as Patrick. Clancy Brown cursed as Mr. Krabs. The voice actors performed the entire episode using actual swear words, knowing they would be censored in post-production. Kenny mentioned in interviews that he was laughing so hard during recording that they had to record him while he lay on the floor of the sound booth. Confirmation the uncensored version exists. At the 2021 Los Angeles Comic-Con, both Tom Kenny and Roger Bumpass, voice of Squidward, addressed the uncensored version during a panel. Bumpass confirmed the recording exists. He explained that the studio routinely records and archives all takes for every episode, including the unedited takes. Bumpass speculated that the recording is still in Nickelodeon's possession, along with other off-color takes from various episodes. In a 2024 Q&A session with the Art of SpongeBob Discord server, writer Paul Tibbitt revealed additional information. He said that at one point he owned a VHS copy of the uncensored episode. However, he's not sure where the tape is currently located. This suggests that copies of the uncensored version existed outside Nickelodeon's main archives, though Tibbitt's tape appears to have been lost. Multiple voice actors have mentioned the uncensored recording in interviews over the years. The existence of this version is not disputed. What remains unknown is whether Nickelodeon will ever release it. Given that it's a children's show and the entire premise of the episode is about not using bad language, releasing audio of the characters actually swearing seems unlikely. The episode's controversy and impact. The episode became controversial despite the censorship. In 2006, the Parents Television Council released a content analysis report claiming Sailor Mouth was an implicit attempt to promote and satirize use of profanity among children. The Watchdog Media Group cited a 2005 repeat broadcast of the episode as problematic. They claim the dolphin sounds represent specific obscenities and that such content was inappropriate for children's programming. The Parents Television Council's media release stated, the group's media release claimed the dolphin sounds represent the F-bomb and a word for buttocks. Those words do not exist in the episode and are only created in the minds of adults or young folks exposed to such language. The episode actually aired during the 2001 to 2002 television season, ironically the same season the PTC named SpongeBob among the best programs on cable television. Despite the controversy, Sailor Mouth has been praised by critics and fans. Barry Levitt of Vulture included it in his 25 essential episodes of SpongeBob SquarePants list. Andrew Furiolo of BuzzFeed ranked it 13th in his top 25 episodes, calling it his choice for the series' funniest. Screen Rant ranked it 6th in their top 25, noting the controversy surrounding its subject matter and regarding it as an example of the show's all-ages appeal. The episode teaches an actual lesson about profanity, that certain words are inappropriate and using them has consequences. SpongeBob and Patrick genuinely don't know the word is bad when they start using it. When they learn it's wrong, they feel guilty and try to stop. The twist ending, where Mr. Krabs uses all 13 bad words himself, adds humor while showing that even adults make mistakes. Why the uncensored version will stay lost. Nickelodeon has never released the uncensored audio and almost certainly never will. The The episode is meant for children. The entire point is teaching kids not to use bad language. Releasing actual profanity would completely contradict that message. It would also generate massive controversy and potentially harm the SpongeBob brand. The uncensored version exists as a production artifact, NOTO, a step in creating the final product, not meant for public consumption. Voice actors swearing during recording was simply a practical solution to help them give better performances. The real episode is the censored version that aired. The uncensored recording is just raw audio that was always intended to be edited. Some fans have created fake uncensored versions over the years, dubbing in their own profanity over the dolphin sounds. These fan-made versions occasionally spread online with people claiming they're real. They're not. The actual uncensored Nickelodeon recording has never leaked or been officially released. Sailor Mouth remains one of SpongeBob's most beloved episodes, despite, perhaps because of, the mystery surrounding its uncensored version. The censored episode works perfectly as broadcast. The creative use of sound effects makes the profanity funny rather than offensive. The episode successfully addresses mature subject matter in a way appropriate for children while still entertaining adults. The lost uncensored audio will likely remain in Nickelodeon's archives forever, a fascinating piece of SpongeBob history that exists but will never be heard by the public. Paul Tibbitt's lost VHS copy might be the only version that ever existed outside the studio, and even that has disappeared. The dolphin chirps, foghorns, and seal barks will continue to censor the profanity for as long as the episode airs, which, based on SpongeBob's continued popularity, could be for many decades to come. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to Shanghaied, the episode with alternate versions and endings. Shanghaied, the SpongeBob episode where viewers chose the ending. A giant anchor crashes through SpongeBob's house. SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward climb the rope and end up trapped on the Flying Dutchman's ghost ship. After accidentally wasting 2 wishes, they argue over who gets the final wish. When the episode originally aired on the 9th of March 2001, Nickelodeon let viewers vote by phone to decide which character would get it. 3 completely different endings were filmed. SpongeBob's ending won the vote and became the official version shown in reruns. For over 20 years, the full Patchy the Pirate segments introducing Patrick and Squidward's endings remained partially lost until they surfaced online in 2024. Shanghaied is episode 33, from SpongeBob's second season. The original broadcast was promoted as SpongeBob's You Wish Spectacular Special. Nickelodeon advertised it heavily as an interactive event where kids could participate in deciding how the story ended. A toll-free phone number and the Nick.com website allowed viewers to cast votes during commercial breaks. This made it the only SpongeBob episode with multiple official endings, and one of the few times any animated show let audiences directly control the outcome. The episode attracted 3.09 million viewers during its original airing with the voting segments. When it was edited into a regular episode for syndication without the patchy segments and voting, it drew 2.16 million viewers. The difference shows how much interest the interactive element generated. The setup: trapped on a ghost ship. The episode begins with SpongeBob eating Kelpo cereal and hoping to find one of 8 prizes inside the box. Suddenly, a massive anchor crashes through his pineapple house. He runs outside, yelling to Squidward that the sky had a baby. Squidward looks at the destruction and points out it's not a baby, it's a giant anchor. Patrick arrives and also exclaims that the sky had a baby. When Squidward's house also gets destroyed by the anchor, he decides to climb the rope to complain to whoever dropped it. SpongeBob and Patrick follow him. After climbing what the narrator describes as a few inches, they reach a giant green glowing ship. Squidward wants to file a complaint with the owner. SpongeBob comments that the place seems familiar, but he can't figure out why. Squidward pounds on a door marked owner. The Flying Dutchman suddenly appears with an aggressive roar. SpongeBob incorrectly identifies the ship as belonging to the Red Baron. The Flying Dutchman asks who is disturbing his lair. SpongeBob helpfully explains it's Squidward who wants to complain. The Dutchman glares at Squidward, who nervously denies wanting to complain. SpongeBob mentions all the stuff Squidward said about the ship being dirty and the owner being lazy. The Dutchman gets angrier. Squidward laughs nervously and says he never said that. The Flying Dutchman declares that insulting a man's ship is worse than insulting his mother. SpongeBob corrects him. It was actually the Dutchman's mother that Squidward said was dirty, not the ship. The Dutchman shoots fire from his nose, burning Squidward. SpongeBob and Patrick try to escape by jumping off the ship. They land back on the deck. The Dutchman welcomes them back. They jump off again and land back again. After several failed escape attempts, the Flying Dutchman pulls out his ghost rulebook. He reads that whoever sets foot on his ship, invited or otherwise, shall become members of his ghostly crew forever and ever. Working for the Flying Dutchman, the Dutchman explains their job will be sailing around frightening people. It will be grueling, mind-numbing, and repetitive, just like daytime television. Squidward complains about having to spend even 5 minutes on this filthy ship. The Dutchman opens a magical zipper in midair called the Fly of Despair. He tosses Squidward inside. Squidward falls through an endless, abstract nightmare dimension while screaming. The Dutchman asks if anyone else wants to enter the Fly of Despair. SpongeBob and Patrick quickly promise they know their place and will do anything he says. The Dutchman hands them a mop and bucket, ordering them to swab the deck. SpongeBob gets excited about having a real live ghost mop. Patrick is thrilled about getting a hat. The Flying Dutchman tries to teach them how to howl like scary ghosts. He howls like a wolf. SpongeBob bleats like a sheep. Patrick yodels, "Leedle, leedle, leedle, lee" repeatedly. The Dutchman keeps trying to howl, but Patrick interrupts him every time with more off-key yodeling. After an awkward silence, the Dutchman gives up and says, "That will do." SpongeBob and Patrick prove to be terrible crew members. When Patrick steers the ship, he crashes through rocks that tear up the hull. SpongeBob keeps saying, "You're good, you're good, you're good," as the ship gets destroyed. During haunting attempts, SpongeBob and Patrick completely ruin the scares with their incompetence. They blow bubbles, shake boards, skate in purple tights, and fail to understand basic signals. After multiple failed haunting missions and extensive ship damage, the Flying Dutchman makes a decision. He tells SpongeBob and Patrick that this whole crew for eternity thing isn't working out. SpongeBob asks if they're being set free. The Dutchman clarifies that actually, he's just going to eat them instead. He closes the door and tells them he'll see them at dinner. They escape through the perfume department. Patrick announces he has an idea, they should leave. SpongeBob points out the door is locked. The only way out is through the perfume department. The scene cuts to live-action footage of an actual department store perfume section with real people shopping. SpongeBob and Patrick run through it while getting sprayed with various perfumes. Someone removes Patrick's gas mask and sprays him directly in the face. A spray goes into SpongeBob's mouth. They exit the department panting. SpongeBob hears the Flying Dutchman in his room writing in his diary. The Dutchman talks about how he made brown sauce for the occasion and found his dining sock. He mentions that the last time he lost his dining sock, he couldn't eat for a whole week. He wonders what would happen if anything happened to it. He suddenly notices the sock is gone and appears in front of SpongeBob and Patrick, demanding they give it back. SpongeBob refuses. The Dutchman tries to zap him, but SpongeBob holds up the sock as protection. They struggle over it and the sock starts to tear. The Dutchman panics about them stretching out the elastic. Patrick observes they have reached an impasse. The Flying Dutchman agrees and offers a deal: give back the sock and get 3 wishes. Patrick tries to negotiate for 5 wishes. The Dutchman counters with 4. Patrick says 3, take it or leave it. The Dutchman agrees to 3 wishes, not realizing Patrick just negotiated down from his own offer. SpongeBob gets excited about having 3 wishes. Patrick immediately wastes the first one by saying he wishes they had known about the wishes earlier. The clock rewinds 1 minute, and the Dutchman announces they have 2 wishes left. SpongeBob taps Patrick's shoulder and says they still have 2 more wishes. He mentions how exciting it is, and wishes Squidward were here to see this. Squidward suddenly stops falling through the Fly of Despair and appears on the ship. He's relieved to be safe, then shocked to realize he's back. SpongeBob explains the Dutchman gave them 3 wishes. Patrick used the first one, and SpongeBob just used the second one. The voting segment. All 3 characters realize there's 1 wish left. Squidward demands it because SpongeBob got him back into this mess. Patrick argues it belongs to him because he didn't really get a real wish. They start arguing loudly over who deserves the final wish. The Flying Dutchman interrupts, saying he'll use his mystic, otherworldly powers to decide. He begins playing Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo. This is where the original broadcast became interactive. A character called the Voting Guy appeared shouting that it's time to vote. The screen cut to Patchy the Pirate in his house. He explained that viewers needed to decide who gets the last wish: Sassy Squidward, Portly Patrick, or good old SpongeBob. The phone number appeared on screen along with instructions to visit nick.com. Patchy's crew waited by phones to take votes. During the commercial break in the original version, Patchy appeared again encouraging kids to keep calling and praising democracy. After the break, he announced it was time to reveal the winner. First, he showed the 2 endings viewers didn't choose, introducing them as the losers. Then he opened an envelope and announced SpongeBob won. The version that aired had SpongeBob's ending play as the conclusion. The phone number shown on screen was 1-800-624-4094. In later DVD releases, this number was censored with text saying, "Yikes, matey. Original 800 number as aired has been retired to Davy Jones' locker." SpongeBob's ending. The winner. The Flying Dutchman's Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo lands on SpongeBob. Squidward tells SpongeBob to think carefully. They're about to get eaten and need to wish for something that prevents that. SpongeBob says he has it figured out. The Dutchman won't be able to eat them because SpongeBob wishes the Dutchman was a vegetarian. The Flying Dutchman transforms. He looks fit and healthy and starts eating celery. SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward appear in front of SpongeBob's house, celebrating that they're home and safe. Then the camera reveals they're not actually safe. Their bodies have been turned into fruit. Patrick Squidward is a banana, SpongeBob is a strawberry, and Patrick is a bunch of grapes. They're all sitting in a blender filled with other fruits. Squidward asks why they've been turned into fruits. They look up and see the Flying Dutchman chopping banana slices into the blender. He explains that he gets a wish too, and fruit prevents scurvy. He whistles cheerfully. SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward scream and bounce around the blender trying to escape. The Dutchman chases them around his ship, which has been transformed into a hippie-themed van with a mast. The episode ends with them still being chased. This ending became the official version. All reruns since 2001 have used SpongeBob's ending exclusively. Patrick's ending, the first alternate. In Patrick's ending, the eeny meeny miny mo lands on him. SpongeBob worries and tells Patrick to make his wish. Patrick stalls with an uncertain, Squidward rushes in to explain that eternity is a very long time. He demonstrates the length of eternity by stretching his arms wide like measuring string. Patrick's eyes follow each end. SpongeBob tells Patrick he needs to think harder than he's ever thought before. Patrick thinks with another, SpongeBob says that won't do it, think harder. Patrick concentrates intensely. Inside Patrick's eye, a toaster appears and ejects a slice of toast. Patrick announces he has it. The Flying Dutchman grants the wish. Patrick starts chewing gum. He apologizes and pulls out a pack from his pocket, offering some to SpongeBob and Squidward. They look shocked. Squidward asks in disbelief if Patrick wished for gum. Patrick explains that if they're going to be there forever, they might as well have fresh breath. SpongeBob and Squidward take pieces and start chewing too, resigned to their fate. The scene cuts to the Flying Dutchman with a big belly. SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward's clothes sit on an empty plate. From inside the Dutchman's stomach, they complain loudly. SpongeBob begs him to let them out and asks why he has to be so mean. Patrick pleads repeatedly. Squidward asks for just one more wish. The Flying Dutchman ignores them and comments, minty, about his fresh breath from the gum. Squidward's ending, 8, the second alternate. In Squidward's ending, the eeny meeny miny mo lands on him. SpongeBob tells Squidward he gets a great big wish. Squidward says that's right, and he knows exactly what he wants. Patrick asks what. Squidward announces he wishes he had never met these two barnacle heads in his entire life. The Flying Dutchman grants the wish with a magical cloud effect. Squidward suddenly finds himself standing next to SpongeBob and Patrick, who genuinely don't know who he is. SpongeBob introduces himself politely, saying he doesn't believe they've met. He introduces his associate Patrick. Patrick says hi. Squidward looks at the Flying Dutchman in horror and protests that's not what he meant. The Dutchman declares that now that introductions are out of the way, it's time for dinner. He pulls out a metal knife and fork. The scene cuts to the Flying Dutchman with a big belly and empty clothes on a plate. Inside his stomach, SpongeBob asks Squidward what his name was again. Squidward explains he's Squidward and he's their neighbor. SpongeBob tries to pronounce the name right and says they'll have plenty of time to get to know each other. He laughs as the episode ends with them stuck together anyway. The missing Patchy segments. When the episode was edited for regular reruns, Nickelodeon removed all the Patchy the Pirate segments. The wraparound segments where Patchy introduced Patrick and Squidward's endings were not included on most DVD releases. For years, fans knew these segments existed because people remembered seeing them during the original broadcast, but finding complete, high-quality versions proved difficult. The episode was released on the Sea Stories DVD in 2002, which included all 3 endings but not the complete original Patchy segments. The first 100 episodes DVD, released in 2009, contained the original You Wish version with the voting segments, though the phone number was censored. The complete second season DVD from 2004 included the edited rerun version with SpongeBob's ending only. The situation created confusion for fans. Some DVD releases had all 3 endings available as bonus features. Others only included the standard SpongeBob ending. The full original broadcast with every Patchy segment intact became a sought-after piece of SpongeBob history. In January 2023, someone posted a phone recording to Discord that claimed to show Squidward's Patchy segment. The video quality was poor because it was filmed off a screen, but it proved the segment still existed somewhere. The post was later deleted. On the 30th of August 2024, YouTuber Nautical Boy uploaded direct quality versions of both Patrick and Squidward's endings with their complete Patchy segments. These versions came from production tapes and finally preserved the content in full quality after 23 years. How the episode works today. Modern viewers watching SpongeBob can see all 3 endings, but the voting element is gone forever. The episode streams on Paramount Plus in the edited Patchy's Pick format. Patchy introduces his favorite episode, Shanghaied, but doesn't mention voting. The episode plays with SpongeBob's ending as the conclusion. The Patchy segments are shorter and don't reference the audience participation. DVD collections released in recent years include options to watch different endings. Viewers can select which version they want to see, similar to Choose Your Own Adventure stories. The Sea Stories DVD specifically marketed this feature, advertising that viewers could play the episode with the ending of their choice. The episode represents a unique experiment in interactive television from an era before streaming, when live broadcasts still dominated. Nickelodeon tried similar concepts with other shows during this period, but Shanghaied became the most famous example. The technology required, phone lines and websites that could handle thousands of simultaneous votes, was cutting edge for 2001, critical reception and legacy. Shanghaied has been praised by critics and fans as one of SpongeBob's best episodes, regardless of which ending viewers prefer. The episode was ranked highly on multiple best-of lists. Screen Rant included it in their top episodes ranking. Various entertainment websites have called it an essential SpongeBob episode. The creative premise of being trapped on a ghost ship combined with the interactive voting made it memorable. Jacqueline Kessel of Decider ranked Shanghaied as the #1 best SpongeBob episode ever, writing that the terrific writing, creativity, and absolute goofiness make it the best episode. Other critics have ranked it in their top 10 lists. The episode maintains a 9.1 out of 10 rating on IMDb based on user reviews. Fans particularly love Patrick's "Leedle Leedle Leedle Lee" yodeling, which became an internet meme. According to leaked audio from the recording session dated the 30th of June 2000, Bill Fagerbakke ad-libbed the yodeling. Tom Kenny can be heard swearing as SpongeBob in the raw audio, though this was censored in the final episode. The recording session audio leak in June 2024 gave fans insight into how the episode was created. The three endings showcase different types of humor. SpongeBob's ending uses irony, technically wins by making the Dutchman vegetarian, but they're still in danger. Patrick's ending emphasizes his stupidity by having him wish for something useless. Squidward's ending demonstrates that he can't escape SpongeBob and Patrick no matter what he wishes for. Each ending fits the character's personality perfectly. The episode stands as proof that SpongeBob's creators were willing to experiment with format and structure. Making 3 different endings required significantly more work than a normal episode. The live voting added logistical complexity. The gamble paid off with higher viewership and lasting cultural impact. Shanghaied proved that SpongeBob could push boundaries beyond typical children's cartoons. Over 2 decades later, the episode continues to entertain. New generations discover it through streaming without realizing it once required audience participation. The lost patchy segments have been preserved. All 3 endings exist in high quality. Shanghaied remains the only SpongeBob episode where viewers chose the story's conclusion, and a testament to early 2000s interactive television that will never happen again quite the same way. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to the movie deleted scenes, the ones that never made it into the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. The SpongeBob SquarePants movie. Deleted scenes that changed the film's story. SpongeBob fails to get promoted to manager of the new Krusty Krab 2, so he drowns his sorrows in ice cream. Meanwhile, Plankton steals King Neptune's crown and frames Mr. Krabs. SpongeBob and Patrick must travel to Shell City to retrieve the crown and save Mr. Krabs from execution. The movie became a massive success when it premiered on the 19th of November 2004, earning over $140 million worldwide. But the final version was significantly different from what the filmmakers originally planned. Multiple scenes were filmed and then cut, including an extended opening with Sandy greeting SpongeBob, a disturbing sequence with a realistic squirrel, and an entirely different framing device featuring Patchy the Pirate instead of the live-action pirates. The SpongeBob SquarePants movie was the first theatrical film based on the television series. Steven Hillenburg, the show's creator, wrote the story and served as executive producer. The movie was intended to be the series finale, though Nickelodeon later continued the show for many more seasons. During production, the filmmakers created more content than could fit in the final runtime. Some scenes were fully animated before being removed. Others existed only as storyboards. A few were cut for pacing, while others were removed because they didn't match the film's tone. Sandy's deleted scenes. Sandy Cheeks appears in the final movie, but has a relatively small role. She shows up briefly at the Krusty Krab 2 opening ceremony, and later is seen enslaved by Plankton. However, Sandy originally had much more screen time in scenes that took place above water. These sequences were fully animated and voiced before being cut. The opening of the movie originally featured Sandy in live-action sequences above the ocean. After the pirate crew sailed to the theater in the final version, there was supposed to be a scene showing Sandy at the beach. She would greet SpongeBob somehow, though the exact details of this interaction remain unclear. This scene was meant to establish Sandy's presence early in the film and show the connection between the underwater world and the surface. The decision to cut Sandy's opening scene came down to pacing. The filmmakers wanted to get underwater and start the main story as quickly as possible. The The theatrical version begins with the French narrator describing the sea and immediately descends to Bikini Bottom. Starting with Sandy would have delayed this descent and slowed the film's momentum. Since Sandy wasn't essential to the main plot about retrieving Neptune's crown, her introduction was expendable. The realistic squirrel scene. The most infamous deleted scene from the movie involved SpongeBob and Patrick encountering a realistic squirrel during their journey to Shell City. This sequence was fully animated and represents one of the strangest creative choices that almost made it into the final film. The scene took place somewhere along the road after SpongeBob and Patrick lost the paddy wagon. In this deleted sequence, SpongeBob and Patrick would come across what appeared to be Sandy. However, instead of the cartoon Sandy they knew, this was a realistic, live-action squirrel or a hyper-realistic animated squirrel that looked genuinely disturbing. The contrast between the cartoon characters and this realistic animal was intentionally unsettling. Patrick's reaction to seeing this creature was so intense that he vomited on screen. The realistic squirrel scene was meant to be shocking and somewhat horrifying. It played on the idea that the surface world is dangerous and alien to sea creatures. SpongeBob and Patrick were supposed to be terrified by this encounter, questioning whether this strange creature was actually their friend Sandy. The scene emphasized how far from home they were and how little they understood about the world above the ocean. This scene was cut because it was too disturbing for the movie's target audience. While SpongeBob has always contained some edgy humor, a scene where Patrick vomits in response to a frightening, realistic animal crossed a line. The filmmakers decided it was tonally inconsistent with the rest of the movie. The scene was also unnecessary to the plot. SpongeBob and Patrick faced plenty of other dangers on their journey without needing this particular encounter. The realistic squirrel scene has become somewhat legendary among SpongeBob fans because it represents such a bizarre creative decision. No footage of this scene has ever been officially released. It exists somewhere in Nickelodeon's archives as a completed animated sequence that will almost certainly never be shown to the public. The scene is occasionally mentioned in interviews and commentary tracks as an example of content that went too far. Patchy and Potty, instead of pirates. The theatrical version of the movie begins with live-action pirates singing the SpongeBob theme song and sailing to a movie theater. These pirates provide bookends to the film, appearing at the beginning and end. However, the original plan was completely different. The framing device was supposed to feature Patchy the Pirate and Potty the Parrot, recurring characters from the television series. Patchy the Pirate, played by Tom Kenny, is SpongeBob's biggest fan. He lives in a normal suburban house and hosts special episodes of the show. Potty the Parrot is his puppet sidekick who constantly annoys him. These characters appeared in many television specials and holiday episodes. The filmmakers naturally assumed they would be perfect for the movie's framing story. In the deleted version, Patchy and Potty would have introduced the movie instead of the pirate crew. They likely would have appeared at the beginning, explaining that viewers were about to watch a SpongeBob movie. Throughout the film, there might have been additional cutaways to Patchy and Potty commenting on the action. At the end, they would have concluded the story and said goodbye to the audience. This approach was cut because it felt too much like a television episode. The filmmakers wanted the movie to feel cinematic and special, not like an extended TV special. Having Patchy and Potty host the movie would have made it seem smaller and less important. The decision to use a crew of live-action pirates instead created a more theatrical feeling. The pirates singing the theme song while sailing to the theater became one of the movie's most memorable sequences. Another reason for the change was tone. Patchy's segments on television are deliberately cheap and silly, filmed in a suburban house with visible low-budget effects. This aesthetic works for TV, but would have felt out of place in a theatrical movie. The pirate crew sailing across the ocean had a sense of adventure and scale that better matched the film's epic story. The switch elevated the entire opening and made the movie feel more like a real cinematic event. Tom Kenny has mentioned in interviews that he was slightly disappointed not to play Patchy in the movie, but he understood the creative decision. The character still appears in many TV specials, so fans didn't lose Patchy entirely. The theatrical pirates became iconic in their own right, with their enthusiastic performance of the theme song becoming a fan-favorite moment. The moved manager pin scene. In the final movie, Mr. Krabs gives SpongeBob the manager pin at the Krusty Krab 2 after Neptune leaves. This happens at the very end during the celebration. However, this scene was originally supposed to take place in a completely different location. The original version had Mr. Krabs visit SpongeBob at his house to give him the pin privately in his bedroom. The deleted scene would have been more intimate and emotional. After all, the adventure was over and everyone returned to normal life. Mr. Krabs would have gone to SpongeBob's pineapple house. He would have climbed to SpongeBob's bedroom and had a private conversation about how wrong he was to doubt SpongeBob. Mr. Krabs would have explained that SpongeBob proved himself to be mature and capable. Then he would have pinned the manager badge on SpongeBob's chest, while SpongeBob cried with happiness. This version was cut for pacing reasons. After the climactic battle with Plankton and the emotional moment where SpongeBob nearly dies under the heat lamp, the movie needed to end quickly. Having an additional scene at SpongeBob's house would have dragged out the conclusion. The film would have felt like it had multiple endings instead of one satisfying conclusion. Moving the manager pin moment to the Krusty Krab allowed all the characters to be present for SpongeBob's triumph. King Neptune, Mindy, Patrick, Squidward, and the crowd all witnessed SpongeBob receiving his promotion. This public recognition felt more rewarding than a private moment. SpongeBob's journey had been watched by everyone, so everyone should see him succeed. The bedroom scene also would have been tonally inconsistent. The movie builds to an exciting musical climax where SpongeBob defeats Plankton with rock and roll. Following that with a quiet bedroom conversation would have killed the energy. The theatrical version maintains momentum by having the promotion happen immediately after the battle, keeping the celebratory feeling going right into the credits. Other reported deleted content. Beyond the major deleted scenes, various other content was removed during production. Storyboards and early scripts contained additional jokes, extended sequences, and alternative versions of existing scenes. Most of these cuts were minor adjustments to improve pacing and timing. One reported deletion involved extended sequences in the Thug Tug. The scene where SpongeBob and Patrick accidentally blow bubbles in the Tough Bar originally included more interaction with the various thugs. Additional jokes and business were trimmed to keep the scene moving. The bubble-blowing baby test sequence was already quite long, so any extra material would have made it drag. The journey to Shell City originally contained more obstacles and dangers. SpongeBob and Patrick encountered additional monsters and hazards that didn't make the final cut. These were removed because the journey already felt long enough. The movie needed to balance the road trip portion with the climax at the Krusty Krab. Too many encounters on the road would have made the film feel unbalanced. Some dialogue was rewritten or shortened throughout the movie. Lines that seemed funny in the script didn't work when voiced and animated. Other jokes were improved through improvisation during recording sessions. Tom Kenny and Bill Fagerbakke often ad-libbed additional material, some of which made it into the movie while other lines were cut. The heat lamp sequence where SpongeBob and Patrick nearly die originally included more despair and sadness. Their final conversation was longer and more emotionally devastating. This was trimmed because it was too depressing for young children. The scene needed to be sad enough to feel meaningful, but not so sad that it traumatized kids. The theatrical version strikes this balance by keeping the tears brief before the triumphant resurrection. The Goofy Goober song variations. The Goofy Goober theme song appears multiple times throughout the movie. SpongeBob and Patrick sing it while drunk on ice cream, it plays during the Thug Tug test, and SpongeBob performs an elaborate rock version during the climax. Different versions and variations of the song were created, with some being cut or altered. An extended version of the ice cream bar scene originally included more verses of the Goofy Goober song. SpongeBob and Patrick would have sung additional lines while getting increasingly drunk on Sundays. This was cut because the point was already made. The scene effectively shows them drowning their sorrows without needing to be any longer. The climactic rock version of the song originally had different lyrics and animation. Various visual gags and sequences were tried before settling on the final surreal montage. Some ideas were too strange, even for this bizarre sequence. The goal was to create something memorably weird without completely confusing the audience. The theatrical version includes a brief moment where the song appears to end, SpongeBob strikes a pose, but then Plankton questions what's happening and SpongeBob continues. This structure went through multiple iterations. Early versions had Plankton interrupt at different points or had the song continue even longer. The final timing creates the best comedic effect. Why deleted scenes stay deleted? The SpongeBob SquarePants movie is not unique in having deleted scenes. Almost every film cuts content during editing. The difference between a rough cut and a final cut is often 20 to 30 minutes of material. The deleted content from this movie exists in various states of completion, from finished animation to rough storyboards. Paramount and Nickelodeon have never officially released most of the deleted scenes. Some are briefly mentioned in DVD commentary tracks. Others are described in interviews with the filmmakers. But actual footage of scenes like the realistic squirrel or Sandy's opening has never been shown publicly. The studios likely consider this material too rough or inappropriate to release. The movie's DVD and Blu-ray releases include minimal bonus features compared to many animated films. There are no deleted scene sections showing the cut content. This is frustrating for fans who want to see what might have been. However, the filmmakers probably feel that deleted scenes would distract from the finished product. They want audiences to appreciate the movie as it was intended to be seen, not to second-guess creative decisions. Some deleted material has leaked through storyboard artists and animators sharing their work online. Occasionally, someone involved in production will post rough versions of cut sequences on social media. These glimpses suggest that substantial material was removed. But without official releases, fans can only piece together information from interviews and occasional leaks. The movie's legacy. Despite having deleted scenes, the The SpongeBob SquarePants movie succeeded as a film. It received positive reviews from critics who praised its humor, animation, and ability to expand the TV show's world. Audiences embraced it, making it a box office success. The movie became a cultural touchstone for millennials who grew up watching SpongeBob. The deleted scenes represent roads not taken. Some changes improved the movie while others were neutral. The realistic squirrel scene almost certainly would have hurt the film if it had remained. The Patchy and Potty framing device might have worked, but the pirate crew was better. Moving the manager pin scene to the Krusty Krab was a clear improvement for pacing. Film production involves constant decision-making about what to keep and what to cut. The SpongeBob SquarePants movie went through this process like any other film. The deleted scenes show that even animated movies evolve significantly from initial concepts to final product. What matters is that the theatrical version tells a complete, satisfying story. The movie ends with SpongeBob finally becoming manager, achieving his dream after proving he was mature enough for the responsibility. That emotional arc works perfectly in the finished film. Any additional scenes would have been distractions from that core story. The deleted content may be interesting for fans to learn about, but the theatrical version remains the definitive SpongeBob movie experience. For now, the deleted scenes remain mostly locked away in Nickelodeon's archives. Unless the studio decides to release a special edition with extensive bonus features, fans will continue learning about cut content through interviews and occasional leaks. The realistic squirrel that made Patrick vomit, Sandy's surface scenes, and Patchy's deleted hosting segments exists somewhere in storage, waiting for the day they might be revealed to curious viewers who want to see every version of SpongeBob's theatrical adventure. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to the pilot differences and lost storyboard scenes from SpongeBob's very first episode. Help Wanted, the 1997 SpongeBob pilot that almost had a different name. SpongeBob wakes up excited to apply for a fry cook job at the Krusty Krab. After Mr. Krabs sends him on an impossible errand to find a hydrodynamic spatula, hordes of hungry anchovies flood the restaurant. SpongeBob saves the day by cooking massive amounts of Krabby Patties and gets hired. This simple story became the very first SpongeBob SquarePants episode when it premiered on the 1st of May 1999. But the version that aired was significantly different from the original 1997 pilot. The pilot featured alternate music, a different opening sequence, changed character designs, and most notably, the main character was originally named SpongeBoy instead of SpongeBob. Help Wanted holds a unique place in SpongeBob history as the only episode produced before Nickelodeon greenlit the series. It was created as a standalone pilot to convince executives the show was worth making. The pilot was completed on the 18th of September, 1997, nearly 2 years before the show officially premiered. This long gap meant the pilot underwent substantial changes before broadcast. A revised version was delivered to Nickelodeon on the 27th of April 1999, just days before the series' debut. The SpongeBoy name change. The most significant difference between the 1997 pilot and the final series involves the main character's name. The pilot was originally titled SpongeBoy Ahoy, and the protagonist was called SpongeBoy. Steven Hillenburg created the character with this name, and all voice recording for the pilot was completed using it. The recording script dated the 12th of May 1997 refers to the character as SpongeBoy throughout. After voice acting wrapped, Nickelodeon's legal department discovered a major problem. The name SpongeBoy was already trademarked by another company that used it for a mop product. This meant Nickelodeon could not use the name for their cartoon character without risking legal action. The discovery came too late to re-record the pilot's dialogue, so the 1997 version was completed with the SpongeBoy name intact. Hillenburg needed to find a replacement name quickly. He insisted the name must still contain the word sponge, so viewers would understand the character was a sea sponge rather than a piece of cheese. After considering various options, he settled on SpongeBob. The last name SquarePants was chosen because it referenced the character's square shape and had a pleasant sound. The name change became official for the 1999 recut and all subsequent episodes. Interestingly, the SpongeBoy name lingered in a few early episodes that were already in production when the change happened. In Squeaky Boots, Mr. Krabs briefly calls him SpongeBoy. A similar reference appears in the Christmas special. These slips suggest scripts were written before the name change was finalized throughout production materials. The different opening sequence. The 1997 pilot featured a completely different opening than the iconic SpongeBob SquarePants theme song that became famous. Instead of the pirate captain singing about SpongeBob living in a pineapple under the sea, the pilot used an instrumental piece called SpongeBob Theme by Brad Caro. This music played over different title card animation. The 1997 intro appeared after Patrick encourages SpongeBob by saying, "Go SpongeBob." The title sequence would play at that moment rather than at the beginning of the episode. The familiar theme song with lyrics was composed later during production of the first season. When Nickelodeon ordered the series, they commissioned the more elaborate, pirate-themed opening that would play before every episode. The decision to create a new theme song made sense from a marketing perspective. A catchy, memorable theme with lyrics helps brand recognition. Kids can sing along and remember the show more easily. The instrumental pilot theme worked fine for a test screening, but wouldn't have the same impact for a weekly series. The pirate captain singing became one of the most recognizable theme songs in television history. The 1999 recut version placed the new theme song at the beginning of the episode where it belonged. This created better pacing and established the show's identity immediately. The pilot's approach of waiting several minutes before showing the title felt awkward for regular broadcasts. Visual and design differences. The 1997 pilot featured notably different character designs and colors compared to the final series. Many of these changes were subtle, but became obvious when comparing the pilot directly to later episodes. The alterations improved visual consistency and made characters more appealing. SpongeBob himself looked different in several ways. His body had fewer holes in the pilot, giving him a smoother appearance. He appeared slightly fatter with a less defined shape. His shoes were larger and his toes were pointier. Most significantly, his walking made no sound effects in the pilot. The familiar squeaky footstep sounds were added later and became one of the show's signature audio cues. Mr. Krabs had bright pink eyelids in the pilot instead of matching the red color of his body. This made his eyes look strange and inconsistent. The change to red eyelids improved his design significantly. His white undershirt also had a tendency to disappear for single frames during certain movements, a technical error that was corrected. Squidward's appearance changed more than any other main character. His skin color was much paler in the pilot, almost gray-blue instead of the teal color used in the series. His eyelids were the same pale color as his skin, rather than darker. His legs were noticeably shorter, making him look stockier. His laugh sounded different, and the comedic splat sound when he falls was changed. Most strangely, his nose didn't puff in and out when he laughed, an iconic detail added later. Patrick looked chubbier in the pilot with a rounder body shape. His pants were a slightly different shade of green. His eyebrows were drawn in a different style that would be revised early in Season 1. Most notably, his voice was significantly deeper and more guttural in the pilot compared to the higher, dopier voice he developed. Gary the Snail had the most dramatic differences. His eye pupils were red dots instead of black, and his irises were much smaller. The red spots on his shell were arranged in a random, messy pattern, rather than the organized spiral that became standard. His meow sounded much more like an actual cat's meow, higher-pitched and squeakier than his later voice. Tom Kenny said he tried to create a new meow for each episode, but the pilot meow was noticeably different due to being recorded so far in advance. All characters had tongues with black outlines in the pilot instead of red. This minor detail was standardized to red for better visual consistency. The black outlines looked harsh and distracting. Animation and technical differences. Beyond character designs, the pilot had numerous technical and animation differences. The bubble transition effect used between scenes was much choppier with fewer frames of animation. The bubbles moved jerkily rather than smoothly. This was likely due to time and budget constraints during pilot production. SpongeBob's house had only one window on the front in the pilot. This matched early concept art but was changed to multiple windows for the series. A few other early Season 1 episodes like Jellyfishing and Boating School still had the single window before the multiple window design became standard. Squidward's house had several unique features in the pilot. Rows of bamboo poles appeared behind his house, matching the original concept art. The path leading to his door consisted of wooden blocks instead of stones. These background details were simplified for regular production. The Krusty Krab had a significant layout error in the pilot. Mr. Krabs' office appeared on the right side of the restaurant instead of the left where it would be located throughout the series. In one shot, there's no indication of a door in the usual left side location at all. This was either an error or an intentional change made after the pilot. The corrected layout became permanent for all subsequent episodes. Voice acting differences. The voice acting in the 1997 pilot sounds noticeably different from the series. Tom Kenny's SpongeBob voice was slightly lower pitched and less refined. He hadn't yet perfected the high-pitched, enthusiastic delivery that became iconic. Bill Fagerbakk's Patrick voice was much deeper and sounded almost threatening at times rather than lovably stupid. Roger Bumpass's Squidward voice remained mostly consistent, but his laugh was different. The bitter, sarcastic quality was present but not fully developed. Clancy Brown's Mr. Krabs was already well established, since the character's voice was based on Brown's natural speaking voice with added accent. These differences resulted from the actors still finding their characters. Voice acting for animation often requires experimentation to discover the right tone and delivery. The cast would have more time to develop and refine their performances over dozens of episodes. By mid-season 1, all voices had evolved into the versions fans recognize. Music and sound differences. Beyond the different opening theme, the pilot used some alternate music cues. The 1997 version opened with Glissando by Richard Myhill over the sound of crashing waves before transitioning to Aloha O. The 1999 recut added Hawaiian Train by Victor Cavini as the title card music, which became standard for most episodes. The music editing credit differed between versions. The 1997 pilot was edited by William B. Griggs, while Nicholas Carr edited the 1999 recut and would become the series' regular sound editor. This change established the audio style that would define SpongeBob's sound design. One song remained consistent between both versions. Tiny Tim's Livin' in the Sunlight, Lovin' in the Moonlight played during the Krabby Patty cooking montage. This licensed song would later cause copyright issues, preventing the episode's inclusion on several DVD releases. Credits and technical information. The end credits for the 1997 and 1999 versions had substantial differences. The 1997 pilot credited Steven Hillenburg as director, while the 1999 version credited him as storyboard director. Derek Drymon's credit changed from storyboard by to storyboard artist. Tim Hill's name appeared first in the writer's credits for 1997, but last in 1999. The 1997 credits contained several spelling errors that were corrected for 1999. Bill Fagerbaki's name was misspelled as Bill Faberbaki. Patrick Starr's name appeared as Partik Starr. Eric Weesey was spelled Eric Wisey. The song title was incorrectly listed as Living in the Sunshine, Loving in the Moonlight, instead of the correct Livin' in the Sunlight. Lovin' in the Moonlight. Gary was not credited at all in the 1997 version despite appearing in the episode. The 1997 pilot displayed a rare early logo before United Plankton Pictures was created. It showed a SpongeBob sketch with created by above and Steven Hillenburg below. The 1999 version used the standard United Plankton Pictures logo. The copyright year read 1997 for the pilot and 1999 for the recut. Steven Hillenburg's name was misspelled in the opening credits of both versions as Steven Hilleberg without the N in his last name. This error was never corrected and appears in all versions of the episode. The pilot was produced by Games Animation, which was renamed Nickelodeon Animation Studio in 1998. This makes Help Wanted the only episode produced under the Games Animation name. The pilot's purpose and reception. Help Wanted was created specifically to convince Nickelodeon executives that SpongeBob SquarePants deserved to be a series. In July 1996, shortly after his previous show, Rocko's Modern Life, was canceled, Steven Hillenburg began developing the concept. He worked with Derek Drymon and Tim Hill to create a pitch that would sell the show. The famous pitch meeting occurred in 1997. Hillenburg wore a Hawaiian shirt and brought an underwater terrarium with models of the characters. Hawaiian music played to set the atmosphere. Nickelodeon executive Eric Coleman described the setup as pretty amazing. When given money and 2 weeks to create a pilot, Hillenburg's team returned with what executive Albie Hecht called a performance I wish I had on tape. The pitch apparently went extremely well despite being stressful for the creators. Kevin Kay and Albie Hecht had to leave the room because they were exhausted from laughing. This made the creators worried until they realized the executives loved it. Nickelodeon approved the series, and SpongeBob was greenlit for production. The pilot was showcased at an event in Austin, Texas between April 18 to 26, 1998, over a year before the official series premiere. This early screening introduced SpongeBob to audiences alongside other Nickelodeon shows like Cat Dog and Action League Now. The pilot was the only completed episode at the time. Why so many changes were made? The extensive changes between the 1997 pilot and 1999 recut served multiple purposes. The 2-year gap gave Hillenburg and his team time to refine every aspect of the show. Character designs were polished, voices were developed, and animation quality improved as the production team gained experience. The name change from SpongeBoy to SpongeBob forced updates to all written materials, though the recorded dialogue remained unchanged. The new opening sequence with the pirate theme song gave the show a stronger brand identity. Visual corrections like fixing Mr. Krabs' eyelids and Squidward's skin tone made characters more appealing and consistent. Technical improvements made the show look more professional. Smoother bubble transitions, corrected layouts, and refined animation elevated the production values. Sound design additions like SpongeBob's footsteps enhanced the audio experience. These collective changes transformed a rough pilot into a broadcast-ready premiere. Nickelodeon wanted the series to succeed, so they invested in making the pilot as polished as possible. The 1999 recut represented the best version of Help Wanted they could create with additional time and resources. The improvements paid off when the show became a massive hit. The episode's legacy: Help Wanted introduced audiences to SpongeBob SquarePants, Patrick Star, Squidward Tentacles, and Eugene Krabs. It established the Krusty Krab as the main setting, and SpongeBob's enthusiastic "I'm ready" catchphrase. The episode's simple story about getting a job became the foundation for hundreds of future episodes. Despite the differences between versions, Help Wanted succeeded in its mission. The episode captured the show's humor, heart, and unique underwater world. Nickelodeon executive Sima Zargami said their immediate reaction was to see it again because they liked it and it was unlike anything they'd seen before. The pilot has been celebrated in various ways over the years. It ranked #2 during the Best Day Ever Marathon in 2006 and #6 during the Ultimate SpongeBob Sponge Bash in 2009. Scenes from the episode appeared at #29 and number 17 inches the 100 Greatest Nicktoon Episodes rankings. In the UK, it ranked #69 during SpongeBob's Top 100 event in 2012. A live script reading of Help Wanted occurred at Universal Studios Hollywood on the 7th of September 2013, with the original voice actors performing their roles. This special event during SpongeBob Fan Celebration celebrated the episode that started everything. Availability of different versions. The 1997 pilot version with the original intro and SpongeBob references has never been officially released. Only the 1999 recut airs on television and streams on platforms like Paramount+. The original pilot exists in Nickelodeon's archives but remains unavailable to the public. Help Wanted was notably excluded from several major DVD releases, including the complete first season, the first season Volume 1, and the first and second seasons. This exclusion resulted from copyright issues with Tiny Tim's song. Nickelodeon reportedly didn't want to pay the estate for continued licensing rights. The episode was eventually included on the complete third season DVD as a bonus feature and appeared on several other compilations. Some international releases like the German Season 1 DVD included the episode. On certain newer platforms, the Tiny Tim song has been replaced with 12th Saint Rag to avoid copyright issues. Impact on future episodes. Several future episodes referenced Help Wanted directly. In Sharks vs. Pods, a framed picture of the hydrodynamic spatula hangs on SpongeBob's wall. Bottle Burglars features the 1st of May 2099 written on the bottom of Mr. Krabs' desk, referencing the episode's air date. Gary's Playhouse included a homage where nematodes flood the Krusty Krab instead of anchovies. The time travel special SpongeBob and Patrick's Timeline Twist-Up had present-day SpongeBob travel back to this episode and meet his past self. He gives his past self the hydrodynamic spatula, creating a time loop. This callback acknowledged the importance of the pilot episode to the entire series. The pilot established fundamental elements that defined SpongeBob for decades. The Krusty Krab became the show's primary location. SpongeBob's enthusiasm and determination became his core traits. The dynamic between SpongeBob, Patrick, Squidward, and Mr. Krabs was established immediately. All these elements from the pilot remained consistent throughout 300-plus episodes. Help Wanted proves that even imperfect pilots can lead to successful shows. The 1997 version, with all its rough edges, convinced executives to take a chance on an untested cartoon about a sea sponge. The refined 1999 recut introduced that cartoon to millions of viewers who would make SpongeBob one of the most successful animated series in history. Both versions represent important steps in creating a cultural phenomenon that continues entertaining audiences over 25 years later. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to Floorboard Harry, the deleted character from Graveyard Shift that was cut before the episode aired, who was replaced by Nosferatu. Mr. Krabs decides the Krusty Krab should be open 24 hours a day to make more money. SpongeBob loves working the night shift, but Squidward hates it. To scare SpongeBob, Squidward invents a story about the hash-slinging slasher, a former fry cook who died and returns every Tuesday night for revenge. When mysterious events start happening, lights flickering, a phone call with nobody there, and a figure arriving on a bus, both of them panic until they realize it's just a guy applying for a job. The episode ends with the reveal that Nosferatu was flickering the lights. This ending became iconic when the episode aired on the 6th of September 2002, but Nosferatu wasn't the original punchline. Early drafts of the episode featured a completely different character causing the light flickering, a creature named Floorboard Harry who lived beneath the Krusty Krab. Graveyard Shift is widely considered one of the best SpongeBob episodes. It ranked highly in multiple fan polls, and critics consistently praise its humor and atmosphere. The episode successfully balances comedy and mild horror, creating genuine tension before revealing everything was harmless. The hash-slinging slasher became one of SpongeBob's most memorable one-off concepts despite never actually appearing. The Nosferatu ending shocked viewers and became an internet phenomenon. For years, fans debated why a random vampire appeared at the end. The joke works because it's completely unexpected and absurd. Nothing in the episode prepared viewers for a reference to a 1922 silent German horror film. But this ending almost didn't happen. The original plan involved a much more grounded explanation for the flickering lights. The episode's plot. The episode begins at closing time at the Krusty Krab. Squidward switches the sign to closed at 8 o'clock and prepares to leave with his clarinet. A customer named Tom knocks on the door asking if they're open. Squidward points to the closed sign and refuses to serve him. When Tom offers money, Mr. Krabs drops from the ceiling and declares they'll stay open. Mr. Krabs tears up the closed sign and puts a new employee hat on Squidward's head. He announces the Krusty Krab is now open 24 hours a day. A crowd of fish rush in and trample Squidward. SpongeBob gasps with joy that they never have to stop working. When Squidward complains to Mr. Krabs, the boss responds that he can't hang out all night because he has a life, then leaves. SpongeBob celebrates that it'll be like a sleepover except they'll be sweaty and covered in grease. He enthusiastically tells Squidward they have customers. Throughout the night, SpongeBob repeatedly tells Squidward he's doing various activities at night, including chopping lettuce, swabbing the bathroom, and burning his hand. He walks around singing night repeatedly to annoying Squidward. Squidward finally tells SpongeBob to take out the trash to get a moment's peace. SpongeBob starts to say he's taking out the trash at night, but stops when he sees the dark outside. He nervously asks if Squidward means outside. When Squidward confirms the dumpster is outside, SpongeBob presses his face against the window, saying it's kind of dark out there. Squidward reminds SpongeBob he liked the night shift. SpongeBob runs out screaming the whole way to the dumpster and back. He snaps his fingers and says, "Piece of cake." Squidward asks if SpongeBob isn't afraid. SpongeBob acts confident, but Squidward says he is afraid, especially after what happened. When SpongeBob asks what he means, Squidward says it was all over the news. The hash-slinging slasher story. Squidward pretends he shouldn't tell the story because it would ruin the night shift for SpongeBob. SpongeBob begs him to tell. Squidward asks if SpongeBob has heard the story of the hash-slinging slasher. SpongeBob gets confused trying to repeat the name, calling it the slash-bringing hasher, the sash-ringing trash-singing mash-flinging flash-springing crash-dinging slasher. Squidward explains most people just call him the ha before screaming, because that's all they have time to say before he gets them. SpongeBob begs for the story. Squidward explains that years ago at the Krusty Krab, the hash-slinging slasher was a fry cook just like SpongeBob but clumsier. One night, while cutting patties, he cut off his own hand by mistake. SpongeBob demonstrates pulling his arms out of socket with new ones growing back. Squidward clarifies the slasher wasn't a sponge, so his hand didn't grow back. SpongeBob's extra arms scream and run away. Squidward continues that the slasher replaced his hand with a rusty spatula, then got hit by a bus. At his funeral, they fired him. Squidward asks what day it is. SpongeBob says Tuesday. Squidward reveals that every Tuesday night, the slasher's ghost returns to the Krusty Krab to wreak horrible vengeance. SpongeBob realizes tonight is Tuesday night. Squidward explains there are 3 signs that signal the hash-slinging slasher's approach. First, the lights will flicker on and off. Second, the phone will ring with nobody there. Finally, the slasher arrives in the ghost of the bus that ran him over. He exits without looking both ways because he's already dead. He taps on the window with his grisly spatula hand, opens the door, and slowly approaches the counter. When Squidward asks if SpongeBob wants to know what happens next, SpongeBob desperately asks what the slasher does. Squidward sneaks up and taps him, saying, "He gets ya." SpongeBob screams for about 20 seconds while Squidward laughs. Everyone in the restaurant stares. Squidward eventually admits he was joking and none of it's true. SpongeBob laughs for another extended period. The signs come true. Later that night, Squidward reads a book at the register while SpongeBob cleans the ceiling with suction cups. Squidward complains about the restaurant being open 24 hours and asks, "Who wants a Krabby Patty at 3 inches the morning?" The scene cuts to Patrick's bedroom where his alarm goes off. Patrick says, "Oh boy, 3 a.m., and pulls out a Krabby Patty from under his blanket to eat it. Back at the Krusty Krab, Squidward comments that it's like a ghost town. The lights start flickering on and off. Squidward sarcastically says, "Very funny, SpongeBob." SpongeBob asks what Squidward means. Squidward realizes nobody is touching the light switch and looks shocked. SpongeBob asks how Squidward is doing that without moving the switch. Squidward insists he's not doing it and blames faulty wiring from the building not being designed to run 24 hours. The phone rings. Squidward answers saying, What? Hello? Repeatedly, but nobody responds. SpongeBob walks up, accusing Squidward of pulling a prank based on the story. Squidward insists he's not doing this. Squidward tries to calm down, listing the signs. The lights flicker, and the phone rings as he mentions them. He asks what the third thing was, and jokes about the walls oozing green slime. The walls start oozing slime, but Squidward says they always do that. He hears a motor and sees a bus pull up to the doors. SpongeBob comments he didn't know buses ran this late. Squidward says they don't. The bus pulls away, dropping off a man on the opposite side of the street. All they can see is his spooky silhouette holding what appears to be a spatula. Squidward screams so intensely that hair grows from his head. He tries to say slinging slasher, but mangles it like SpongeBob did earlier. SpongeBob cries, but says he's touched that Squidward would dress up and stand across the street to entertain him. Squidward points out two problems with that theory. He hates SpongeBob, and he can't be over there while standing right here. The man taps on the door with his spatula. SpongeBob screams so hard his eyelashes grow. The real explanation. The man walks through the door and approaches the counter. SpongeBob and Squidward hold each other in terror. SpongeBob yells for the man to get away and that he's going to flip him. Squidward admits that despite what he said, he's always sort of liked SpongeBob. SpongeBob confesses he used Squidward's clarinet to unclog his toilet. As the man reaches the register boat and steps into the light, he's revealed to be a small green man in a purple coat. He asks for a job application and shows he brought his own spatula. His sleeve rolls down, revealing he has both hands. He explains he called earlier but hung up because he was nervous. SpongeBob asks if he has references. Squidward lets go of SpongeBob and asks, wait, if that was him on the phone and him on the bus, then who was flickering the lights? The lights flicker on and off. All three characters look over. The camera darts to reveal Nosferatu standing by a giant light switch. SpongeBob, Squidward, and the job applicant say, Nosferatu, in a joking tone. Nosferatu smiles and turns the light off, ending the episode. Who is Floorboard Harry? According to information shared by people involved in the episode's production, early drafts featured a different character causing the light flickering. This character was named Floorboard Harry. He was conceived as a creature or person living beneath the Krusty Krab's floorboards. The visual gag would have shown his eye peeking up through a hole in the floor. The original ending would have revealed that Floorboard Harry had been underneath them the entire time, somehow flickering the lights from below. This explanation was more grounded than the random Nosferatu appearance. It established Harry as a resident of the Krusty Krab that SpongeBob and Squidward simply didn't know about. The character's name suggests he was meant to be somewhat creepy, but ultimately harmless. Floorboard Harry sounds like a ghost story or urban legend, the kind of creature kids scare each other with. The fact that he lived under the floorboards gave him access to the building's infrastructure, explaining how he could manipulate the lights. The eye peeking through the floor would have been the visual punchline. Throughout the episode, viewers might have caught brief glimpses of this eye watching SpongeBob and Squidward, or it might have only appeared in the final reveal. Either way, the gag would have been that this character had been there all along without them noticing. Floorboard Harry represented a more logical conclusion to the episode's mystery. The flickering lights had a reasonable in-universe explanation. Harry lived under the restaurant and was messing with the electrical system, either deliberately or accidentally. This maintained the episode's internal consistency. Why Nosferatu replaced Harry? The decision to replace Floorboard Harry with Nosferatu came during production. The exact timeline of this change is unclear, but it happened before animation was finalized. The reasons for the change likely involve multiple factors related to comedy and visual impact. The Nosferatu gag is funnier because it makes no logical sense. Comedy often works better when it defies expectations. An episode that builds tension around mysterious events should have an unexpected resolution. Floorboard Harry would have been too predictable. Of course, there's a creature living under the restaurant causing problems. Nosferatu is absurd. Why is a German expressionist vampire flickering lights in a fast food restaurant? The lack of explanation is the joke. The Nosferatu reference also works as a film reference that adult viewers would appreciate. SpongeBob has always included jokes aimed at parents watching with their kids. Nosferatu is one of the most famous horror films ever made. Viewers familiar with film history would recognize the character immediately. The 1922 film is in public domain, allowing SpongeBob to use the character's likeness without licensing issues. Visually, Nosferatu is more striking than an eye in the floor. The character's distinctive appearance, pale skin, pointed ears, long fingers, and gothic clothing creates a memorable final image. When the camera cuts to him standing by the light switch, it's instantly iconic. An eye peeking through floorboards wouldn't have the same visual punch. The Nosferatu ending works because it completely abandons realism. The episode had been building toward explaining the mysterious events. The job applicant explained 2 of the 3 signs. Then, instead of explaining the third sign logically, the episode goes for pure absurdity. This tonal shift from attempted horror to complete nonsense provides the perfect comedic release after minutes of tension. Floorboard Harry might have felt too much like a real threat. Even if Harry was harmless, introducing a character living secretly under the restaurant raises questions. Why is he there? What does he want? How long has he been there? These questions would distract from the episode's conclusion. Nosferatu requires no explanation because his presence is clearly a joke. Fan reaction and legacy. When Graveyard Shift premiered, the Nosferatu ending confused many viewers. Kids who didn't know the reference found it random but funny. Adults who recognized Nosferatu laughed at the unexpected film reference. Some viewers thought it was a different vampire like Dracula. The internet eventually educated everyone on the 1922 silent film. The ending became iconic despite MP, or because of its randomness. Nosferatu became a meme that SpongeBob fans quote, "when something spooky happens." The image of Nosferatu smiling while flicking the light switch appears in countless memes and fan art. The joke's absurdity gave it lasting power. Very few people know about Floorboard Harry. The character was cut before most promotional materials were created. Only people directly involved in production would have seen scripts or storyboards featuring Harry. When production staff mention deleted content in interviews, they typically discuss major scenes or characters, not minor joke changes. Floorboard Harry has occasionally been mentioned in fan communities when discussing the episode's production. Some fans who heard about the character think he might have been a better choice. They argue Harry would have made more sense and tied the episode together better. Others defend the Nosferatu choice as the superior comedic option. The Nosferatu ending proved influential for SpongeBob's style. It showed the series could make completely random references and get away with it. Later episodes included similar unexpected references and non-sequitur endings. The willingness to abandon logic for comedy became a SpongeBob trademark. If Floorboard Harry had been used, the episode would have been forgotten faster. Graveyard Shift remains one of the most discussed SpongeBob episodes specifically because of its bizarre ending. Fans still debate why Nosferatu was chosen and what it means. This ongoing conversation keeps the episode relevant decades after it aired. The episode's overall success. Regardless of the ending change, Graveyard Shift succeeded as one of SpongeBob's best episodes. The hash-slinging slasher story is perfectly constructed parody of horror storytelling. Squidward's fake tale includes all the classic elements, the tragic backstory, the specific conditions for the ghost's return, and the signs of his approach. SpongeBob's inability to say hash-slinging slasher correctly provides excellent wordplay comedy. His various attempts, slash-bringing hasher, sash-ringing trash-singing mash-flinging slasher, are genuinely clever tongue twisters. When Squidward later mangles the name while scared, it completes the joke's payoff. The episode balances humor and atmosphere perfectly. It creates genuine tension when the signs start coming true without losing its comedic tone. The scene where the figure appears across the street and taps on the window is legitimately eerie for a children's cartoon. Then the reveal that it's just a nervous job applicant provides satisfying resolution. The Patrick eating a Krabby Patty at 3 a.m. scene is a perfect side gag. It answers Squidward's rhetorical question while providing character-specific humor. Of course, Patrick would wake up specifically to eat a Krabby Patty at 3 inches the morning. The joke requires no setup beyond the question and delivers a complete mini-story in seconds. Voice actor performances elevate the material. Tom Kenny's SpongeBob screaming for 20 seconds straight is impressive vocal work. Roger Bumpass makes Squidward's terror convincing when he sees the figure with the spatula. Both actors commit fully to the horror parody while maintaining their characters' personalities. Why deleted choices matter. Understanding production decisions like replacing Floorboard Harry helps appreciate the creative process. Every episode involves countless choices about what to include, change, or remove. Some changes improve the final product, while others are neutral. Occasionally deleted content might have been better than what aired. The Floorboard Harry to Nosferatu change demonstrates how a last-minute decision can define an episode's legacy. Without the Nosferatu ending, Graveyard Shift would still be good but less memorable. The unexpected vampire elevated the episode from very good to legendary. This shows why creators must stay flexible and willing to replace ideas even late in production. Production of animated television requires collaboration between writers, storyboard artists, directors, and network executives. Any of these people might suggest changes that improve the episode. The Nosferatu idea likely came from someone looking at the ending and realizing it needed to be funnier or more memorable. That person's suggestion created an iconic moment. Fans benefit from knowing these behind-the-scenes details. Understanding that Nosferatu replaced Floorboard, Harry adds context to the episode. It shows the ending wasn't arbitrary randomness, but a deliberate choice to maximize comedy. The creators specifically decided absurdity worked better than logic for this particular joke. Graveyard Shift remains one of SpongeBob's most beloved episodes over 20 years after it premiered. The episode successfully parodies horror movies while staying appropriate for children. The hash-slinging slasher became part of SpongeBob mythology despite never actually existing, and Nosferatu's appearance created one of television's strangest and most memorable punchlines. Floorboard Harry exists only as a footnote in the episode's production history. The character was replaced before most people involved in creating SpongeBob ever saw him. His eye never peeked through the floorboards on screen. No animation was completed featuring him. He remains a might have been, an alternate version of the episode that exists only in early scripts and storyboards. But knowing about Floorboard Harry enriches understanding of Graveyard Shift. It reveals the creative process behind the episode's perfect ending. The choice to abandon a logical explanation for complete absurdity was deliberate and successful. Nosferatu flickering lights in the Krusty Krab is funny specifically because it makes no sense. That's a lesson about comedy that extends far beyond one SpongeBob episode. The episode proves that sometimes the best creative choice is the most unexpected one. Floorboard Harry would have been fine, Nosferatu is unforgettable. That difference between fine and unforgettable is what separates good episodes from classics. Graveyard Shift earned its place among SpongeBob's best because someone decided to replace a logical creature with a random vampire. And that decision continues paying comedic dividends every time someone discovers the episode and wonders why Nosferatu is flickering the lights. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe and I'll see you in the next video.